Gentlemen and ladies, behold another episode of the Brief Nerdy Podcast. I am your host, Ryan, your favorite Ryan, hopefully. I don't know, Ryan Reynolds is pretty amazing, but I'd go for a good second best, maybe third. But joining me this week is my good friend Trent.
Hello.
And
I don't have any really good famous Trents, so I better be your favorite.
Oh, that's true. Trent Reznor, though.
Trent Reznor is pretty great. All right, fine.
And then TJ. TJ, are there any famous TJs?
TJ Miller.
Oh, yeah, touche.
It was supposed to be me, but I didn't make it to Hollywood yet. So
you are the Wii national champion. So
that's true.
That puts you pretty much on par with TJ Miller.
Yeah, just about equal there.
Hey, you were on TV in a commercial, so
that's true.
You're an actor officially.
I'm not a big fan of TJ Miller, so you're my favorite TJ.
Oh, thanks.
Hands down. So.
Yeah, he's very hit or miss.
All right, well, let's get things started with our round robin this week. Very, what's the word I'm looking for? Up to date? That's not it at all. Relevant. It's very relevant. Because Stranger Things premiered this past weekend. We've all seen it. We will, in fact, have a mini spoiler cast at the end. So don't worry about any Stranger Things spoilers until the ending. But for our round robin this week, we are going with our favorite character from this past season of Stranger Things. Again, keeping things completely spoiler-free. So who would like to go first? I can, if no one else wants to.
I will.
Okay.
I think this is a big fan favorite, but I gotta say he was my favorite in the first season, favorite in this season. I love Steve. I just love that character.
Too.
The baseball bat moment in the first season is still my favorite moment, and I think we could talk about the first season. Spoilers.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the thing I love about that is he gets thrown into it just right then and there. He has no idea all this crazy stuff that's going on, and then in that moment, it's just like he needs to fight or flee, and he just chooses to fight, and he's like, okay, well, I have a bat, and there's this thing, this monster.
He's up to the plate, as it were.
Exactly, he redeems himself.
Baseball pun?
Yes, pun. Okay. Very, very punny. Yeah, so I don't know. I just love the cool character, and you gotta love that hair.
Well, again, not talking at all about season 2, but just season 1, he just had a really good arc where he started off as the stereotypical 80s school bully, you know, sort of thing, but then had a really good arc.
And it was a very believable arc, too. Yeah. Because he was a bully, like, the first half, but then you could tell that he wasn't just a total piece of crap.
Yeah.
So.
Nancy doesn't deserve him.
Yeah, I think Nancy definitely, I mean, we don't want to talk too much spoilers, but she definitely fell a lot in my opinion levels this season.
Opinion levels.
Oh, we'll get to talking about all the characters at the end of the show.
All right, Ryan, who's your next?
So I would pick Steve as well. I mean, he was by far my favorite. But if we're gonna just not do the same thing, I'm gonna have to go with Dustin in season 2.
Dang
it. Like everybody in season 2, not all best decisions were made all around, but he's still just, considerably charming for his age and got some of the best laughs from me, especially his noise he does. Yeah.
Yes.
Got a big smile for me every single time.
So freaking cute.
And again, no spoilers, but any interaction that he had with Steve were some of my favorite moments of the season. So
I agree.
Nice. All right. Well,
we'll give you the scraps, Trent.
Those two being off the table.
My favorite is Mr. Clark.
I do like Mr. Clark.
He is great.
I'm trying to think of who I would like next to. I kept wanting to like Tom, but it never quite got there. I'll go with Max. I liked Max a lot. I thought she was a great new character. She reacted to everything pretty much exactly the same way that I would, I feel like. So I felt like she was kind of the audience's voice in a lot of situations. So I'll go with that. I liked her a lot.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing her character. That is. I'll take it.
Well, cool beans. Well, that's our favorite characters from Stranger Things Season 2. Be sure to tune in at the end of the podcast for our full Stranger Things 2 spoilercast to get our full opinions, spoiler full, of this past season of Stranger Things. So, with that being said, the other big thing that happened this week, gentlemen, Super Mario Odyssey.
Yes.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
So I have a kind of a mini funny story to go just kind of kick us off here, and Trent and TJ already know this, but the first world of the game is relatively small, one of the smaller worlds of the game. Just kind of get your feet wet with the game, and so it didn't take me long to get through the majority of it. But I told myself when I started playing this game that I was going to get every single moon and purple coin before moving on to the next world, at least every one that I possibly could, because I haven't finished the game yet, but I'm pretty sure they block you from being able to get all of them until a certain point of the story or after the story. I'm not sure, but either way, there's slots left over that are impossible for me to get. But that being said, anywho, the first night, I finished the first world relatively quickly, and then to move on to world 2, the desert world. And I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to finish this world tonight. Again, kind of thinking like, Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, even Ukulele, maybe even the first world of Mario, to where there'd be maybe like 15, 20 moons in the stage. And that is not the case. That is not the case whatsoever. There are nearly 70 moons in that first stage.
Yeah.
I was up until 4 a.m. I snapped a picture to TJ and Trent being like, I'm finally done.
Well, for anyone that hasn't played it yet, it's like the previous 3D Mario games where instead of stars, it's moons hidden in the level. Or if you played Banjo-Kazooie, there's these collectibles you get. The biggest difference in here, though, is there are a ton of them, but it doesn't really interrupt the gameplay. Like, you could just explore and find a really easy one, maybe one that was even just hidden under a rock. Or there could be a whole like side quest sequence that you have to go through to get one. So you're constantly getting these. So there's a ton of them, but it's not some crazy long quest for each one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in some of them, there's just always one in every store in every world.
Yeah. Yep.
And which I was surprised by too. So, but yeah.
I haven't gotten the exact final count. I've been trying to look it up, but I really want to avoid major spoilers, so it's been kind of hard. But from what I've heard, there's over 900 total.
Over 9,000?
So there are quite a few.
I'm getting them all.
Oh yeah, me too. I definitely plan on 100%ing this. Zelda, the Koroks, that was more of like a side like bonus thing, but this is like the main gameplay hook. So I will definitely be going for it.
So I may go back and 100% it, but I'll be honest, I'm literally I'm getting to the point where I have enough to tick off again, and then I'm looking around is there anything else I really want to explore? And then I leave. Because I really want to finish this game, and I'm terrified that it'll be like the third Switch game in a row that I haven't finished.
Well, that might be kind of difficult because technically the story can be finished relatively quickly, but supposedly, I don't know any details, but supposedly after you beat the main story, a ton of things open up, like new worlds and other things included. So nice. Beating the story isn't really like beating the game. So I guess it's going to be kind of hard to determine when the game is beat.
Well, spoiler free, most people say that the story, that you beat Bowser, if that's the end of the story, in about 8 hours. If you kind of not do the bare minimum, but just kind of like, oh, I'm okay. The Cappy says it's time to go, sort of thing. So relatively quick.
Yeah. So, but I've been loving it, even though I've been just kind of dipping into each world a little bit. I'm surprisingly in love with the costume system.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you guys. Right now, I'm literally running around with my mad scientist Mario outfit, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can mix and match the different hats and the clothes. But one of the things I absolutely love, just one of the many small attentions to detail, a lot of the costumes you unlock are costumes Mario has worn in all of his previous history.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't really consider some of these spoilers because you've seen Mario wearing these before, but one that I got today was Mario in his painter's outfit and his beret from Mario Paint.
Yep.
And I have so many fond memories with Mario Paint that I had to wear that for a while. And it's so easy to just switch, and the costumes don't give you different abilities or anything, so you're free to wear whatever you want in any of the worlds. Some worlds, or every world, has a specific moon that you need to be wearing a specific outfit in order to like get through the door. Like they won't let you in unless you're wearing the full costume of whatever they're asking for. But for the most part,
I didn't even know that.
yeah. So there's a ton of stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, you can wear whatever you want in any of the worlds. So yeah, it's so cool just seeing some of these, because some of these Marios, you've only really seen them in the artwork and stuff like that, and just to have it be playable, like especially that Mario Paint one. His Explorer outfit, that's from Mario Picross. So there's just so many. I haven't finished the game yet, but I keep finding more and more, and I just love it.
This game has really struck just a happy chord with me.
Yes.
And like I'm just constantly like either externally or just internally just smiling my head off as I'm playing it. No spoilers at all, but there's a moment that happened last night that I was almost like jumping out of my seat with giddiness, just because I was loving what I was seeing and doing at that moment so much.
Yeah, we talked about that a little earlier today, because that happened to me. I got to that point today, and I was feeling the exact same way. Like I was not expecting it at all, and it's a magical thing.
Well, I'm excited to get to
Maggie was laughing at me because I was just like the whole time during that small sequence that was happening, and so it was pretty amazing. So I absolutely love this game. It seems like a perfect marriage between Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie.
Yes,
in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Because one thing that Banjo-Kazooie had when it had its jiggies and levels, that you would grab a jiggy and then just continue on from where you were, and go to find more jiggies. And because there was a lot more jiggies than there were, not a lot more, but more jiggies per stage than there were stars per stage in Mario 64, a lot of them were just easy, like, oh look, just jump and grab this one. Not quite as easy as a lot of them in this game, but the concept still remains the same. And also I think with the possessing ability that the cap gives you, it reminds me a lot of just Mumbo's transformations in the Banjo-Kazooie games, to where oh, hey, you can't do this certain thing right here until you go to Mumbo and transform into a washing machine, and then you can do that specific thing. So
yeah, because for anyone listening that doesn't know, basically pretty much any enemy, and not even just enemies, sometimes inanimate objects, as long as they're not wearing a hat, you can throw your hat, Cappy, onto it and then become that. You possess it, and then everything gives you different abilities. And I've done a ton of them so far, and there's yet to be one that isn't fun. They're all fun in their own ways, and the controls, they all play completely different, but the controls, you learn them like instantaneous. And it's just, you get like an enemy, or you become an enemy, and you're like, oh my gosh, they can do this. That means I can go here. There could be a part of the level you saw way earlier that you thought you'd never be able to get to, and then you take over an enemy, and you're like, okay, now I need to go back, and it opens up all new stuff. It's crazy how much they reward you for exploring. They really want you to go outside of the boundaries of the levels and explore every nook and cranny.
Oh yeah, like I thought I had gone through the desert level pretty thoroughly because I was running around. I think I got maybe a third of the moons that were available. I'm like, I got like 25. I only needed 16. Like, I'm doing awesome. And then Ryan sent me the screenshot later that night where he's got like 64. And I'm like, well.
I was like, man, I cleaned up this desert pretty good. And then I look at the pause menu with the list of how many there are. And I'm like, oh, okay, still got a lot to go.
Yeah. There's just so much to see, discover. And you mentioned a lot when we were talking about Zelda, TJ, that you just explore this one corner of Hyrule and then you discover something and make you so happy. And I couldn't quite relate to it, at least in Zelda, but I'm totally relating to that feeling in Mario Odyssey right now. So
oh yeah, I've been trying to find the words. I don't think I have them quite yet, but comparing Mario to Zelda, both really rely heavily on exploration, but it's a different kind of exploration in both of the games.
Like I said, it really struck a chord with me on this one.
Yeah. And you're right. Like you said earlier, it's just fun. Like it's just happy. Like everything about it is great. And it's not even just because of the graphics, because all the worlds really do look different. And there are some worlds that are not cartoonish at all.
Yeah, it was a very realistic art style. It's kind of
a very, very realistic. And I'm not talking about New Donk City, not just that one. You know, they've shown that, like, you know, with all the human beings running around and stuff like that in like a New York-like city. But there are stages later where you're like,
am I in Dark Souls right now?
That it's Mario. Yeah,
that was the first thought that went through my head. Like, am I in Dark Souls? Did my Switch mess up or something?
Yeah. So it's great. I've been thinking about it nonstop, and I've been trying to play it every chance I get. So
yeah, it's one of those games to where just like since I've gotten it, every time I've not been playing it, I just want to play it.
Yep.
So I don't even want to be doing this podcast right now. I just want to be playing Mario, guys.
Yeah, well, this has been the.
Bye, everybody! Woohoo! But no, I cannot recommend it enough, and I'm not even done yet. And so, unless it crashes and burns at the end, which I highly, highly, highly doubt, this is no doubt in my mind, you know, Game of the Year 2017.
Well, some of the complaints I've heard from people so far have said that it feels too easy. But my argument for that is, like, thinking back to Mario 64. When we all played Mario 64, that was a brand new experience for everyone, as far as, like, gaming goes. It was a fully, like, fully rendered 3D game, 3D platformer. Like, there weren't really very many of those at the time. There were some on PlayStation 1, but nothing with, like, this scope.
Yeah.
So it was new, like just learning those controls and the physics and everything. It was brand new for everyone. And now, after all these years, we've all played so many different 3D platformers that it's a lot easier to get into this now. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't beaten it yet. It's going to take a while. Like before I really give my final thoughts on it, you know, I want to try and get everything. But as of now, I'd be really surprised if this wasn't my game of the year.
Well said.
And I loved Zelda. Loved it. But
I'm really enjoying it so far. There's the only tiny nitpick I have so far is that there are a few moves that Mario can do that you have to use motion controls to do. And that bothers me a little bit.
It does me too. It's probably the biggest nitpick I have for the game. But I will say, and it's dumb that I even have to say this, but people have found out recently in the past couple of days. I just haven't noticed because I've been kind of head in the ground for Mario for the past couple of days to avoid spoilers. But every single motion control move can be done with controllers. It's just not in the action guide.
What?
Like to do the Cappy spin move where he spins around you, I guess you have to rotate the control stick around first and then hit the button. Yeah,
you rotate it and Mario will start spinning in place and then you just press the cap button and he spins it around him.
What?
So people have already documented what all the controls are for all the motion controls. It's just dumb that they didn't put it in the action guide in the game, especially since Cappy insists on reading from the action guide every time you change worlds.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, the motion controls don't really bother me, but I also haven't played it in handheld mode yet. That's where I could see it really being inconvenient. So yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I didn't know that every single move was mapped to buttons too.
Yeah,
it just kind of reminds me of Skyward Sword. Like the motion controls there weren't bad, but even if it only worked like 70% of the time, that's still like that other 30% is extremely frustrating. So. Yeah, especially like in the desert level when you had to like, there's one moon you have to like catch a bird that's flying around like the whole level. So I was like running after him and like trying to do the upward toss motion with my cap to try to get him because he's above my jumping height, so I couldn't just jump up and hit him. So I was like jumping and throwing like just like contorting my body in every which way to try to get this controller to throw the cap up to hit him. It was
well, see, even that, like my buddy I was talking to, that's how he got it. He followed the bird and then threw the cap up and got it, but I did it different. I didn't do that at all. I like charted its course. It was flying in like a specific pattern, and there was one part where he flies really low, like right to the ground. So I just stood there, waited for him to come around, and then got him.
There you go. You're smarter than me. I was like, "Come back, bird!"
But yeah, I mean, the Switch, for not even being out a year, it is just there are so many great games on it to absolutely warrant a purchase. Because even if you don't have a Switch now and you just get, even a handful of the games that are out, they will keep you busy for a very, very long time.
It's definitely the best first year any console's ever had ever.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yep.
I really enjoyed it. And I would definitely recommend, like, if you don't have one, if you've been waiting for like a system seller, I think this is it.
Yep. I agree. And then all the other stuff is just a bonus.
Yarp.
This is the one thing that I worry about. Not to go into like a whole Switch discussion, but it's killing me still that there are no cloud saves or any way to back up your saves, because with the Switch being portable and these games that require hours and hours and hours, like my Zelda save file, I think I have like 120 hours in that, maybe even more. If I lost that because I take my Switch somewhere and I drop it or something, it would kill me, because I would not want to do that again. As much as I love that game, I would not want to have to do all that over again. And it's just, we're adding more and more great games, and now a game like Mario where it's going to take hours and hours to finish it all. The fact that I can't back those saves up just scares me to death.
So you think Nintendo will ever implement a cloud save system, or you think we'll just eventually be able to get the ability to maybe transfer to micro SD and therefore USB?
Well, just like Nintendo has always done, they take baby steps. They've taken one baby step where now you can transfer your save data from one Switch to another. But just like with the 3DS, when you move it over, it's gone from the other one. So you're not copying it, you're just moving it. I'm hoping that if they do plan on doing cloud saves, that the reason they haven't done it now is because they're waiting for the paid online service. Maybe they'll implement them that way. Maybe that'll be one of the benefits of paying for the online. But I don't know. We'll see. It's Nintendo, so you never know with that stuff.
Yeah. Hopefully so.
Yeah. Because I don't want to lose any of that stuff. I really don't.
I think that wraps up our Mario Odyssey. It's safe to say that we all thoroughly enjoy it at this point. None of us are done yet, but I'm sure we'll have more to say in the coming weeks as we all, at our own pace, finish the game. So we love it. So other than that, though, Trent, what you been playing?
So other than Mario Odyssey, Destiny 2 came out on Tuesday, so I'm playing a lot of that with you and our friend Eric, who you heard from a few weeks or 2 weeks ago, something like that.
We played it a lot the first 3 days, and then we neglected it when Mario came out.
Well, it's Mario and Stranger Things Whirlwind Weekend is how I'm describing it.
Yeah.
But we'll be getting back to it either tonight or tomorrow, I imagine. And then I've just been kind of here and there also taking a break to play Fallout 4. And those are the 3 that I've been spending my time with.
Nice. Me too, just without the Fallout. Just Destiny 2 and Mario. So.
But yeah, I love Destiny 2 so far. It's really fun. I wish there was a little more differentiation between the classes, because I feel like, I don't know, maybe Endgame will get better, but like right now I feel like unless you're using your special or something like that, like the different classes aren't really all that different.
Yeah. It's definitely a shooter first.
Right. But it's still fun. So, yeah.
What about you, TJ?
Besides Mario, I finished South Park. I know I talked about it on the show last week. I know you finished it and gave your thoughts. And yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. It definitely did feel a little long in the tooth. I stayed up really late one night because I was at what I thought was the final boss, because they really made it seem like it was.
In the lab?
Yes, in the lab. It was a very tough boss. I died with one of my all my characters were dead except one, and the move that I used to kill the boss also killed my character. So it didn't count as me beating it. So I had to start all over, and I'm like, okay, it's way too late. I can't do this. And I thought that I'd be able to beat the boss and then, see the end of the game, and that was it. Thank goodness I didn't stay up that night, though, because there were still like a few hours left.
Yep.
And yeah, I see what you mean. The story, it had a lot of great moments, but it does kind of go all over the place. It loses its main focus. Even when they reveal like the truth about your main character, the new kid and stuff, there's a whole different part after that. Actually, a few different parts after that. So it's just a ton of ideas that I didn't think any of them were necessarily bad, but it just didn't feel very cohesive. But I still really enjoyed the game throughout, though.
And just, I think the finale, I'll be vague here, but the battle in all the front yards and on the street again toward the end was a fun battle.
Yeah.
I feel everything after that was like, okay, sure, and then just the way the game just abruptly ends with very, very little to no resolution at all.
Yeah.
I felt was disappointing. I think that works on a 22-minute show where it's just kind of silly to begin with, but when you kind of have a 20-hour, more epic than normal South Park story, I think it deserves a bit more than what it gave us.
Yeah. And like you said last week, Stick of Truth, everyone's like, oh man, I wish it wasn't over. I wish this was longer.
Yeah.
And then we get a longer one and we're like, oh, I kind of wish this was shorter. So, yeah, but I still highly recommend it. I mean, it's
especially
great.
if you're a South Park fan, it's still a great game. Good battle system, lots of fun, and I had several genuine laugh out loud moments.
Oh yeah, and the weird thing is I felt like I did a pretty good job combing like the whole town and the map and stuff, but there's still some big stuff that I didn't find. Like some of the summons. Like there's 4 summons that you can find. The 4th one I never found. So I don't know where that was, but I beat this after Mario Odyssey came out. So I was trying to get through it, and now, I don't know when it's going to be when I go back, but I'm curious to see what else I have left.
Well, I enjoyed it enough to where it's a story DLCs come out and they get generally positive reception, then I'll probably pick them up. I know one of them is going to be like a Casa Bonita quest. Or something to that matter, so that sounds like a lot of fun. So I'll definitely jump back into the game at some point. Yeah.
But if anyone's on the fence, definitely get it, especially if you never played the first one, because it comes with both. So,
nice.
That's that.
All right. What you been watching, TJ, besides Stranger Things?
Yes, besides Stranger Things, I've mentioned on the show before, there's a lot of shows I regularly watch, but it's too much to talk about. There's a ton of stuff on now, but there were a few shows I was thinking about that I watched that I never mentioned on the show, and I feel like people should know about them. Especially the show Nathan For You. Have you guys ever seen that on Comedy Central?
Nope.
So it's on its 4th season, and it's about this guy, Nathan Fielder. He is very dull. Like, he seems like a very uninteresting guy, but the whole premise of the show is he goes to struggling businesses, and he comes up with these ridiculous ways to help them. But it seems like he kind of goes towards people that are kind of weird or maybe not all there, so they just go all in on it and let him do whatever he wants to really boost their business. It's a show that's very hard to explain, but it's also a show that I would recommend to pretty much anyone because every episode is so different. He does all different types of businesses. Like, for example, there's a realtor. Her business is struggling. So his idea is to have her be the first official realtor that guarantees your house is not haunted. So he hires an exorcist to come in and go to the houses and check them out, and he changes her whole marketing strategy. And it's very tongue-in-cheek, but it is kind of reality because I really don't think these people know that he's just trying to make a funny show.
Yeah.
But as the seasons go on, he invests more and more money. The production value gets bigger and bigger in the budgets, and the lengths that he goes to help these businesses and just make an entertaining show. You just have to see it. Every episode's great. Look it up. Nathan For You. It's on Comedy Central. It's on every Thursday night. You don't need to see the other ones before jumping into one, but definitely go back and look them up because it is the show is so smart. Show? Kind of. It's because it's not
these are real businesses he's helping, or
these are actual businesses. Because one of the great things about the show is they will show what he was doing before the show aired. So maybe months ago, the news might have had a segment about, oh, this business is doing something interesting. They're doing this to bring in new clientele and everything. And they had no idea they were filming it for a show. So one example I'll give, I don't want to talk about it too much, but one of the recent episodes, he went on Jimmy Kimmel Live. He was one of the guests. And he talked about how all these guests that come on, the thing people love the most about them is they have a very interesting story. So what he wanted to do was go on there and tell a really crazy, interesting story, but he didn't want to lie about it. So he did everything he possibly could to set this up so the story would completely play out and actually happen. So when he went on the show and told this absurd story, he wasn't lying about it. So they go on Jimmy Kimmel. He tells the story. Everyone laughs and stuff. And that happened before the show even aired that talked about what he was doing. So no one knew that he did that. They thought, oh, well, he's just telling a funny story. So it's great. It's absolutely great. I feel bad for never talking about it before because I've been watching it since it came out, and I cannot recommend it enough. Nathan, for you.
Nice. I'll add it to the list.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, but then one other show I watch, I forget what station it's on, but it's the Toy Box. It's on its second season. Basically, it's kind of like Shark Tank, but the reason I like it is toy inventors will bring their toy ideas onto the show, and it's a panel of kid judges, and they get to play with them, and then the kids vote which toys they like and move forward. And at the end of the season, the winning toy, the toy that wins overall, instantly becomes available to purchase at Toys R Us.
Huh.
Like Mattel, like funds the show and everything.
I'm getting
So it's on
flashbacks to Big.
Yeah. But yeah, so like it's really cool. The first season was kind of rough around the edges, but in the second season, I can't think of another show like game show or reality show, whatever you'd want to label it as, that really recognized the problems that the first season had and made all the changes just to make it a better, more consistently entertaining show. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun seeing the kids. Like, they have kids of all ages, so the stuff that these kids come up with when they're trying to sound professional and everything, it's absolutely hilarious. Yeah, the Toy Box.
Very nice. For me, I did a lot of Stranger Things, but not a whole lot of new stuff. Just want to give a call out to Star Trek that had a time-ish travel episode this past week, and it was fantastic. Star Trek and time travel go together very well, in my opinion, and they did a really good job. And Orville had another A+ episode that was very, very, very old school Star Trek-ish feeling, and hit the nail on the head, if that's the right statement. But I really enjoyed both of them. I think both of them offer different views of the Star Trekkiness, and I'm really happy where both of them are going, and I love each of them, so can't recommend them both enough. And Stranger Things is great. So that's it for me.
Let's see. So yeah, obviously Stranger Things. I will echo what Ryan said about Star Trek and Orville. I thought this was the best Discovery episode yet. It was super fun. Didn't take itself too seriously. But involved a lot of interesting, fun time loop stuff. And I thought the Orville was a really poignant cultural commentary on our society, which was, again, really well done and surprising and
very relevant.
Amazing, right? But yeah, other than that, staying up with Rebels, Survivor, and the CW shows. Those are my current list of shows at the moment. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Very nice. All right, well, let's get into the news. Several of these we're going to just kind of blow past. May not require a large bit of discussion, but I thought they were interesting to note. So, but knowing TJ, he'll probably spin it off into philosophical statements about the kids in Splatoon and what it means to be a child again, and a squidly.
Hey, a lot of people don't know that Splatoon takes place after the world ended.
Good to know.
Did you know that? That's canon?
Did not.
It takes place after the end of the world, where there was a nuclear fallout, and then the fish that lived in the ocean and survived eventually evolved into these kids. And what they're doing is they're recreating the battles that ended the world. And the cat in the game, he was cryogenically frozen, so he was the only living cat. That's why he's the only one in the game, and that's why they all look up to him and stuff, because he's totally unique. So it's a very weird story.
So the world ended with a giant battle between ketchup and mustard.
Maybe.
Wasn't that one of the
Splatfest?
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, again, just kind of go through a couple of these. Sony is now going to start publishing Nintendo Switch and PC games. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are blowing this one out of proportion.
It totally is.
Yeah, this happened.
but under a different name also.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like people forget that Microsoft has published a ton of Nintendo games over the years too, like on Game Boy Advance and other consoles and everything. So this really isn't that crazy. I think it just makes for a good headline.
Yeah.
But still interesting though.
Are people going crazy about this?
A little bit. Like they think like it's going to be like the Microsoft thing where all Xbox games are coming to PC, So people are like, oh, Sony's going to start publishing games on the PC. It's like, no, not really.
No. Yeah, this doesn't mean that like Last of Us is going to come to PC or Uncharted or anything. So.
Oh, that's too bad. I wish it would.
Yeah.
It's like I'd love if they put their games on PC. Even if it was like a paid service or something.
So it's good that they're branching out on some titles, just like Microsoft has been in the past, and Nintendo now stretching its legs in the mobile market. So I think more people having access to people's games is better, but we have no idea what they're going to do with this. It's probably not going to be much. So
yeah.
So take that whatever way you want. I'm a good host.
I'm just imagining all the different ways that people take.
There's exactly one way. Meh. Next item up for bid is original Xbox games are now in the store. So, for PC gamers, it's not that big a deal. A lot of PC gamers can still play KOTOR on their PC, but I think for people who play consoles and as someone who used to be heavily invested in the Xbox ecosystem, it really makes me happy that Xbox went through the process to make the Xbox One backwards compatible to the original Xbox, at least to the small extent they have already.
Yeah.
Because especially as someone who still owns dozens of original Xbox games.
Yeah, I feel like Microsoft really doesn't get the credit that they deserve for doing this. Because if you think about it, it really is something special. The fact that you could take some of your old Xbox original games
15, 16-year-old discs.
Yeah, like that's crazy. And I think it's all just emulation. I don't think it's actually playing it off of the disc. I think you insert it and it downloads it and then just plays it off there. But still, just the fact that they're supporting that, I mean, that's just like, imagine if on Wii U, one day Nintendo was just like, oh yeah, your GameCube games are going to work. Just pop them in. It's like people would go nuts. They'd lose their minds. And I feel like Microsoft, they're kind of struggling. It feels like it seems like at least on the console side of things. So stuff like this really does help the system stand out from the others.
And it sets them up for future successes too, because I think one of the main reasons why they've done this is because they've moved to the Windows ecosystem for their Xbox, and they've said they're going to stay there. Is that, the next Xbox, the fourth Xbox, is going to be fully backwards compatible with original Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and whatever the fourth Xbox console is.
Xbox 0.5.
Yep.
But so oh, go on.
I was going to say that just creates a fantastic consumer experience to know that, with air quotes here, any Xbox game you ever purchased will be playable on future systems.
Yeah, it's really cool. And another thing too that I love, because like I have an Xbox One, I honestly don't play it very much. It's my Cuphead system now. But one of the things I like about it is I was really big into Xbox 360. I downloaded a ton of games. Like that was my go-to system during that era. And it's so cool. Like every once in a while, just booting up the Xbox One and looking at my games and just, oh, wow, what do you know? They added a handful of games that I had on my 360. They're now compatible on Xbox One, and now they're in my library. Like, I just think that's so cool that they're constantly updating it and adding more.
Yep.
Because I look at my PlayStation 3 digital library, and it kills me that they're just stuck on that console.
Yep.
Like, if I want to play those games, I have to play them on there. Like, PS4 just will not support it.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it's the same with Nintendo. Like, there's a lot of Wii U games that I would love to own, but I never owned a Wii U, and so like, do I go buy one, or like, do I hope that they'll get a Wii or like a Switch release, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough, and I mean, Wii U still is not very cheap. I know the console's dead, but it never dropped to like that, like serious budget price.
Yeah, like what, that $100, $200 range.
Yeah, and like the fact that the gamepad is a necessity for it, I wouldn't feel comfortable buying a used one just
Same.
because
Yeah.
that controller's so different. So
And like,
yeah,
you never know how scratched up it'll be, or
exactly.
people have killed any of the pixels on it or anything like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of you guys saw this too, just going back to the Xbox thing, is that they're not just straight ports, so to speak. I mean, because to use KOTOR, for example, there's a comparison video that, KOTOR on the Xbox ran at like 480i, if that. So extremely fuzzy. The colors were just super faded, I guess, just because of the way the Xbox console generated its graphics or something like that. But the game runs at like 1080p. And cleaned up textures and almost like a light remaster.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I'm sure that has to do with the fact that it's emulated. But I mean, that's awesome. Because I was so happy they one of the Xbox 360 backwards compatible games they added was Ghostbusters. I really enjoyed that game. Yeah, and I've always wanted to, or for a long time now, I've wanted to play through it again, but I don't have my 360 hooked up anymore. So now it's like, oh, I still have my disc. I pulled it out, and yeah, now I can play it on the Xbox One. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's just good to know. It's one thing I've really loved about becoming a PC gamer is that any game I have, I could play whenever, for the most part. And so the fact that Xbox has worked and is working to make that a reality for all Xbox gamers, it's just really consumer friendly, and I applaud them for it.
Agreed.
So kind of on the topic of Xbox, around the time of my transition from an Xbox gamer to a PC gamer, I want to say one of the nails in the coffin that's way more dramatic than it needs to be, but one thing that just really kind of turned me off of Xbox and kind of pushed me more towards the PC, even though it probably shouldn't have, was the release of Halo Master Chief Collection. I don't want to go too long into super story time, but in the GameCube up until the GameCube S days, I was the most hardcore Nintendo fanboys you could possibly think of, and I was one of those I just hated like the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, and it was all about the GameCube, and no one has anything on anything Nintendo basically. And it was Halo that broke me out of that. I went to a friend's birthday party where he had a 16-player Halo LAN party set up, and we played all night long, and like something awakened in me where I was like, what? There's good games outside of Nintendo games, so to speak. And so it was after that I got an Xbox, and then it opened my gaming world to a much, much bigger world than just what was on a Nintendo console. And so I always had a strong bond with Halo, and still do to this day. And so when Microsoft, announced the release of the Master Chief Collection, remastered 1080p, 60 frames a second, remaster of the first four Master Chief Halo games, I was over the moon excited to get this and play through them campaign co-op again with my friend. And I spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours in Halo 2 and Halo 3 multiplayer, and so I was happy to jump into those again and everything like that. But the game was, to put it lightly, a mess when it came out. It was probably, in my personal experience, probably maybe besides Fable 2, one of the most buggy experiences I've ever had with a game in my entire life. So it was extremely disappointing. Everything offline or online barely worked at all. It would take people sometimes hours to get matched up into a match. Online co-op had extreme latency issues, and sometimes people would get desynced. So I was playing with my buddy Andrew, sometimes he would die on mine but not in his. And so it would restart the checkpoint for me, but he would still be playing, but the controls would translate over the internet in our different sessions, so to speak. And so it was like I said, it was just a mess, and I was extremely disappointed. And again, it was kind of as I was becoming a PC gamer, so I'm like, screw this consoles, I'm out, kind of thing. So that was a pretty long roundabout way to get to this next story item, is that 343 Studios, the developer, did patch it a little bit, but there was just kind of a point where they just kind of washed their hands of it, and okay, we're done. The game's just going to kind of live in this buggy state, and it still is. Literally within the past 6 months, I was with a couple of friends, just kind of hanging out, drinking one night, and hey, let's pop in Halo, and we put in the Master Chief Collection, and we couldn't get through the menus without the game just crashing. So we're just But anywho, 343 has recently come out, and just basically gave a really long description of exactly what went wrong from a technical reason, and how, like, because of the OS or the version of the OS it was running on before, and the fact that the Xbox One's OS just in general wasn't fully baked when it came out, and there was tons of OS limitations that it had versus what the Xbox 360 had, and trying to translate these 4 different systems into this new system was just a pain they couldn't get around. But basically they're saying they're going back to the game, and they're going to fix it and make it 100% at this point. Along with this announcement, people data mined the Halo website, and they found a Windows 10, or just a box art of Master Chief Collection with the Windows 10 like banner on it. But even though there's been no official announcement yet, and so it made me really happy, getting excited again. That the plan is to, at least they've announced that they're going to go back and fix Master Chief Collection. A 3-year-old release at this point. And then there's a possibility of a future PC release.
Wow, yeah, I know fans have wanted all those games on PC for a long time now.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. Sorry, I was kind of a bit of a rant/rave for such a tiny news story, but I love Halo, and the fact that Master Chief Collection is getting fixed and possibly becoming PC makes me really happy. So, the end.
Yay.
And finally, when it comes to Xbox news, Xbox One keyboard and mouse support is launching very, very soon. Official keyboard and mouse support. What do each of you think about this?
Yay.
All right, now. Go on, Trent.
I have no opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's cool. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't they? If they're really trying to blend the PC and console world, I mean, why not? Is there anything that regulates, like, when you play online as to whether or not people are using keyboard and mouse or a controller?
Don't know as of yet. And that's probably my only quote-unquote worry, is that, if you get, people like Overwatch on Xbox is significantly different than Overwatch on PC. They even release like totally separate patches and balance fixes to the console versions because of the differences between the console and PC versus one of them being the way that they're controlled. Mm-hmm. And so if mouse and keyboard becomes a thing, how does that, from the developer's standpoint, how do they effectively balance, and how is it fair for the people who legitimately just want to use a controller and lounge on the couch while they play their Xbox versus, people who will set it up next to an monitor and start playing with mouse and keyboard?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a bridge we'll cross when we get there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that they're releasing the official support for it.
Yeah, more options is always better.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's games that I play with a controller on PC, and so I think it's good that they have the option. The competitive stuff they'll just have to figure it out.
Get to it, developers. Gosh.
Seriously.
I just hope it works for Grabbed by the Ghoulies.
My game has been begging for mouse and keyboard support for years.
That's the only reason that game's not good.
The only reason.
Finally be played the way it was meant to be played.
Along with Blinks the Time Sweeper.
And Voodoo Vince.
These are all original Xbox games that just aren't very good. Just a footnote of an item here. Injustice 2 was finally announced to be coming to PC. I don't like when this happens. I mean, I'm glad it's coming to PC, but I don't like when they release a console version with no announcement of a PC version, because I watched the story on YouTube, and so I'm like, okay, well, sorry guys, I know the story now, so I'm not going to buy or play this game. Whereas I probably would have purchased it if
if you'd given me any kind of inkling that I could have bought this eventually, I wouldn't have not have watched the story already.
Yep. Which makes me sad, because I'm really in the mood right now to support good single player experiences.
True.
And so, but
same.
Can I say one thing about Injustice 2?
No.
It's driving me nuts.
All right, moving on. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
So Hellboy is one of the next characters to come out, or I think the next character in the DLC character pack. And they had the first official gameplay trailer for him. And one thing I noticed that drives me crazy is, how Hellboy has his right arm is huge, compared to his left arm. It switches sides depending on what move, whichever way he's facing and what move he's doing. His arms will swap. I thought this was something that we no longer had to deal with in like the 3D age. I thought that was more for like pixel art because that was very common back in like the 16-bit days and stuff, just to make it easier, for the animations and stuff. But this, I don't know if this has anything to do with like the hitboxes or the fighting, but I even had to look it up because I was like, I don't know much about Hellboy, but does his arm switch like that? Like, can he only have one arm like that at a time? But no, his right arm is always his big arm, and it switches. And for a game with such beautiful graphics, I mean, unbelievable graphics, that completely takes me out of it when I see something like that.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a weird oversight, considering the attention to detail that they put into all those characters.
Bad form, NetherRealm. Bad form.
Bad form.
Bad form, Jack.
So PGW is happening today, and there's a lot of good trailers coming out there, and you should definitely check them out. Trailers like for The Last of Us Part 2, Marvel's Spider-Man, Shadow of the Colossus, Detroit Become Human, all that stuff. We won't talk about any of the trailers right now, but you should just go watch them because they all look fantastic. One thing I wanted to say, I think TJ wanted to say something as well, is that despite all this talk about no single-player games or single-player games are dying or dead, whether you believe that or not, even as someone who primarily plays on the PC, and even when he was a console gamer, preferred the Xbox ecosystem greatly, I really have to tip my hat to Sony because they have constantly delivered, game after game after game of good, solid single-player experiences, and have been for the past decade or two. And so, thanks, Sony. It was nice to see trailer after trailer at this, of all good, quote-unquote good, single-player story experiences. And it was a breath of fresh air after the news last week. So. Oh,
yeah. And there's way more games than what you even listed. Those were just for like the really big ones. But I think like the new God of War, they announced on the indie side, they announced Guacamelee 2 and Spelunky 2. The new game from Insomniac, no one's really known what they've been up to, and they revealed it. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but I'm pretty sure it's a brand new IP.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. I'm sorry, but I'm sure if you look it up, you'll be able to find it. Yeah, we're not going to talk about these trailers. I did watch the 4 that were mentioned. The one that really stood out to me was Detroit Become Human, one of my most anticipated games, and that trailer showed gameplay. They give you a very specific scenario that takes place in the game, and then it just shows you all of the different outcomes. Kind of like how Heavy Rain could play out, but on an even bigger scale, where just so many different options and one thing that leads to another. Really, really can't wait. But like that game and a lot of the other games they showed, no release dates for most of them. So who knows when these will all even be out?
Or until they're canceled and made into Destiny clones.
Exactly.
Okay, well, moving on to the next one. We kind of talked about Orville a little bit, but there's some good news about Orville is that there's no official renewal for Season 2 like Star Trek so far, but it's hitting a Thursday high for NBC.
Nice.
So it is doing very well for them right now. So
yeah, that's good.
Sorry, I said NBC. I meant Fox. It's on Fox.
It's okay. NBC was in the headline.
Yep, that's why. But yeah, so I'm glad it's doing really well, and it deserves its success because it's one of my favorite shows right now. Last week we talked about the weekend hype, and we got a little bit of weekend hype coming up for this weekend. We have Thor Ragnarok coming out, and right now the reception has been very positive. It is currently sitting at a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Me too.
I gotta figure out when I'm gonna watch it. I haven't got my tickets yet because of Movie Pass, so I was like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, I didn't use Movie Pass on this one. I bought them IMAX ahead of time.
I need to buy my tickets as well.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I love every single thing that they've shown so far, and I feel like they didn't show too much. So, yeah, can't wait to see how it is.
The only negative thing I've seen in reviews is just that it's very apparent that the movie just wanted to be a Planet Hulk movie because they kind of focus more on that and kind of throw the Ragnarok storyline as like the B storyline, even though it's the title of the movie.
Oh, huh.
Marvel can't do a solo Hulk film without involving Universal, because Universal owns the solo Hulk movie rights. So they could only use Hulk as part of another character or, team up movie like Avengers. So it's like they want to do Planet Hulk, but they're like, oh, well, let's just add Thor in there, make it Thor 3, and make a Planet Hulk movie, so to speak. So,
See, I heard it's a little bit different. The review that I watched said that it was just very apparent that they tried to do both at the same time, and both suffered a little bit from it. But that it's still a crazy fun movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I'm very excited for it, and I'm sure I'll love it. On the other side of the comic book fence, speaking of just kind of fun superhero, Zachary Levi, one of my favorite actors out there, has been cast as Shazam in the upcoming DC movie.
Yeah, that really surprised me, but I think it's a good choice. Just the fact that it's him and The Rock. The Rock is Black Adam. Like, I don't know if they'll ever come together in any of the movies, but that's just crazy that it's those two versus each other.
It's been the most exciting DC announcement of all time. I think besides maybe the initial Batman v Superman is happening announcement, but like Shazam is such a fun superhero character that, is kind of one of those B heroes that you never thought would get a movie, kind of like Iron Man at the time. And Zachary Levi, I think, is perfect casting because it's essentially a 11, 12-year-old kid in a grown man's body when he's Shazam. So I think Zachary Levi is going to just play that off super, super well.
And he's going to get jacked.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see him doing a good job with the whole like kid in a grown-up's body thing, because it's basically like Big the superhero movie. But I don't know. I mean, like he's never like. I mean, what do you think his most successful acting job has been up to this point? Is Tangled like?
Yeah, I'd probably consider Tangled. He was a supporting actor in Thor 2.
Yeah, for like 10 seconds.
No, he was in the movie for probably a good bit. More than you probably remember.
No, it wasn't.
What about?
I'm just saying. Like I remember being really excited for him to be in that movie, and then being really disappointed at how small a role it was.
Yeah, I mean he's just part of the team of Asgardians, but he probably had more prominent role than any other Asgardian besides Thor in the movie.
Right, but as the Thor movies have gone on, they've had a smaller and smaller part.
Oh yeah, totally. I don't even think he's in 3. I'd be surprised if he is, rather.
So now you wonder who will play the boy. Who would be a good Zachary Levi boy?
Come
on, Ryan. You're supposed to be thinking about this already.
The kid from Stranger Things. Mike.
Which one? Oh, Mike. He can't be in everything.
Wait, Mike. Mike was the black kid.
What?
Mike.
Huh? Mike
in Stranger Things?
Oh, I was thinking It.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
No, Lucas is the black kid in Stranger Things.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, sure, Mike from Stranger Things, just because he did so well in Stranger Things and It.
It's just like
then Zachary Levi would have to play the older him in It.
There you go. It'd be perfect.
There you go. Hollywood, we solved one of your problems.
I don't really know child actors very well. I know It and Stranger Things both had very good child actors, so one of those kids. And then Mike was the kid that was in both, so he wins the battle. The battle royale of kids.
There you go. It has been decided.
I'll just call him up real quick. Hey, do you want to be Shazam? You want to be young Zachary Levi?
He'd be like, who? And then you hang up.
Who is this?
But yeah, I'm very excited for it. Like I said, Shazam's a fun character, and Zachary Levi is a fun actor, and I think he'll bring a fun addition to the DCEU, if it even exists after this. Who knows? They're being weird about it. So
well, it's interesting. Like Warner Brothers keeps going back and forth on whether their expanded universe is going to continue. The latest I heard is that they're still planning on tying them together somehow loosely, but they don't like the phrase DCEU. but they haven't given like a counter name. And so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm just gonna keep calling it that until you tell me what else to call it. I just thought it was funny.
I just don't get why DC has such a hard time making that shared universe. They basically said, "All right, we're going to stop it because it's just too hard." But I don't get why it has to be that difficult.
Yeah, why is it hard?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they like want to change actors, and then they feel like if they sign someone on and people aren't happy with their performance, they can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
Hint, hint. 30 Seconds to Mars, man.
30 Seconds to Mars, man. Not sure who that is.
Jared Leto.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Leto, whatever.
Joker?
Yeah.
They have 2 get out of jail free cards in regards to Jared Leto. A, they could just make him Jason Todd.
Right.
Yeah,
They could.
And there are plenty of like hints to the fact that he was anyway.
Yeah. And DC has the ultimate get out of free card. I mentioned this before, but they could just flashpoint everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
They could.
So
And with how well Ezra Miller has been testing with audiences with like the Flash in Justice League, he's been received very well. So like him like doing a movie with Flashpoint, I think would be fantastic.
so disappointed in the CW's version of Flashpoint. Could have been so cool. Anywho.
That's just kind of the CW verse in general right now.
It's true. It's true. And finally, this week, before we get to our Stranger Things spoiler cast, a fun bit of news came out in that Harrison Ford was the reason that Mark Hamill returned to Star Wars. Did you guys read this or hear anything about this?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so Mark Hamill was pretty much prepared to say no. Because when George Lucas sat down with Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill and basically told them that at that time he was planning on making 7, 8, and 9. I believe this was in 2010, if I'm remembering correctly. And immediately Carrie was like, slapped the table and was like, I'm in. Mark Hamill was a little bit more cautious, I guess. He was like, I don't think anyone wants to see like 16, 17-year-olds like waving around lightsabers and stuff like that. And this is all internal. He was just like saying, I don't think I'm gonna be involved. Especially because he was like, and there's no way Harrison Ford is doing it, kind of in the back of his mind. And so you'll have like George Lucas and Carrie Fisher is the only ones wanting to do it. And so, but after they signed on Harrison Ford, he was like, well, I can't be the only one that says no out of the trio. So he reluctantly at the time agreed to sign on, but has since then, done full circle, and he says it's one of the best decisions he's ever made to revisit this character. And
that's why he wasn't really in Force Awakens a lot, because he was still thinking at the time.
Yeah.
He was still deciding.
JJ's like, okay, we're just gonna make the movie. Let us know before we're done filming if you want to be in it.
Can you imagine if she'd gotten there and he'd just be dead or something? Like,
yeah. There's a really funny story he told us in a panel at Salt Lake Comic-Con one time. I'm sure he said it elsewhere, but he told it in a panel, and I really enjoyed the story. But it was basically a story of the first reading of the script, that famous picture that went around of the entire cast sitting around reading the script for the first time. He basically was like, he was really enjoying it, but he was getting really excited for his entrance. And like every time they turned the page, he'd like scan it really quick. Like, am I in? Nope, not here yet. And then like,
did they not read those beforehand?
No, it was. I mean, they sat down, they all in a circle, and they were handed the scripts, and they did a first reading right then and there. So, and then he said he got to the part to where Rey's unconscious, and then Finn is fighting Kylo, and then Kylo takes out Finn, and then the lightsaber, Kylo reached out for the lightsaber, starts shaking. Like, I can't tell the story nearly as well as Mark, but he was just like, he got like super excited in that part in the script, as like someone was, I forgot who the narrator, who was playing the part of the narrator, was reading it, and he's like, okay, here it comes. I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna save the day as Luke Skywalker. And then the lightsaber flies to Rey. So, yeah, he told this story really funny. You have to see if there's an audio or it's on YouTube or something, because it's a pretty funny story.
That's great.
But so
I
yeah,
like this quote from Mark Hamill though. He's like, Hamill was certain Ford would reject the offer. Quote, he's too old and too rich and too cranky.
that's pretty much describes him pretty well.
So apt, like it's so perfectly described, and it's so Mark Hamill to describe it that way.
Yep. Good old Mark Hamill. Thanks for coming back. Hopefully hopefully the character of Luke Skywalker doesn't suck. I don't think Mark Hamill will suck, but
I hope it doesn't suck.
I don't know. It's like I don't know. We could go on about Last Jedi forever, but I really hope they do Luke Skywalker justice because he's my hero in the original trilogy. Most people are Han fans, but I'm the Luke guy.
I like Luke too.
So
I'm really worried because those early interviews where he said like he disagreed with like almost every choice that Rian Johnson had made about Luke's everything and then just like his reaction in the trailers. I'm just like, no, Luke, like please let this be a huge misdirection and that you like have your come to Obi-Wan moment and just come in and like save the day.
Yeah, I'm okay with it for like most of the movie, even being kind of like down the dumps or whatever. But as long as he becomes the Luke I saw at the end of Return of the Jedi by the end of the movie, I'll be happy.
Yeah, like I need him to have his Yoda moment in Episode 2, like where he just shows up and like just kicks butt.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
Yeah, I need that. I need it bad.
Because I'm not going to get it from Leia, I'm pretty sure, and that makes me really mad. If I don't get it from Luke either, I'm going to be so upset.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Kind of a side note, and hopefully neither of you consider this too spoiler, but Daisy Ridley said in an interview this week that in The Last Jedi we learn her parentage.
I think she said that before.
Did she?
Yeah, because I
only read that this week.
Oh, huh.
It's possible she said it before. That's exciting.
Again, I kind of assumed it was going to happen because most of those kind of big plot drops don't really typically happen in the third act of a trilogy, for the most part. So.
Yeah.
Except for Leia.
Yeah. I don't think that was planned.
I thought like they also didn't do anything with it, which makes me upset.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's exciting. She said a couple other things as to how she thinks audiences will respond, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But it got people in the Star Wars communities. Basically, that means that everyone's theory is correct now. So, but yeah, we'll see. So I think before
Jar Jar is her dad. So.
Well, of course, that's the obvious answer. But we're trying to go for a little bit of originality here.
Well, a month and a half.
So far away. So as the last thing before we get into our listener questions and the Stranger Things spoiler cast, I think we should just have each of us give our prediction of her parents one last time, and kind of have on the record as this is our final answer as to what her lineage is. Who would like to go first?
Final answer for the next month and a half? Like we can't change our mind?
Yeah, because who knows, the marketing might influence our decision, or there could be leaks that influence our decision. We never know.
That's true.
TJ, how about you?
Honestly, I really don't know. I really like the Obi-Wan like rumors that were kind of floating around.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I feel like there's been so many theories and people have had so much time to come up with these theories and stuff that I don't think the actual reveal is going to be something that someone hasn't said already.
It's true. It's nearly impossible at this point.
So I don't know.
Trent?
Let's throw a random curveball and say that she's Ezra's daughter.
All right. My father was Ezra Bridger.
Half the theaters. Who?
I'm just gonna go with Skywalker.
Yeah,
I think that's my real answer.
Yeah, because part of me thinks it'd be really cool if it was a Kenobi, but I think that would just require too much explaining.
Yeah, that's true.
It would be like, well, Obi-Wan had this chick, Duchess, and they actually, Duchess Satine, and they kind of had an affair, and she had a secret daughter because they couldn't let the Jedi know that he had, had relations, and so she had a secret daughter, and that daughter is Rey's mom. It's just it's too much of a stretch for them to kind of try to tie that back in, and she's definitely too young to be Obi-Wan's daughter, so it'd have to be granddaughter. So as cool as I think that would be, I don't think it's quite realistic for a movie sense. And the only reason I'm kind of still going with Skywalker, even though I think it's the easy and obvious answer for them to do, it's because these are the saga films. The prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and the sequel trilogy have all been primarily revolving around the Skywalkers, and I don't think Kylo is the answer to that. So I'm just hoping for the sake of lineage.
And Kathleen Kennedy said that a number of times, that like the saga films are about the Skywalkers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just overall, I'm just a little tired of the whole like parents thing in movies or just in entertainment. Like that's always like a big storyline. Like so many movies use that. It's like you have these characters, and then one of the sequels, it's like, and I'm your dad. And it's like, because I think back to the original Star Wars. Obviously, I wasn't around. I wasn't born yet when it came out, but the reveal of Vader being Luke's father was such a surprise because it wasn't a focus. Like, no one was even thinking about it. They heard about Luke's dad, and they're like, oh, okay, I wonder who that guy was. But obviously, it's not part of the story. And that's what made that so special. And I just feel like that was the first big one in entertainment. And ever since then, that's a big storyline that so many things kind of flock to. I'm just like kind of tired of it now.
Yeah, I can understand that. So you'd be more on the side of that she's just kind of an original character and her lineage is unimportant?
Well, I would prefer that, but now they've set it up to the point where now it is part of the story. Like they are revolving a lot of the story around it, so they have to go through with it. But I don't know. I don't think it was really necessary. I mean, it's always interesting to find out that stuff, but I don't know. Why couldn't Rey just be like a nobody?
She's too powerful to be a nobody. Only Skywalkers can be that powerful.
Exactly.
So.
All right. Well, a question for you two. Should we move on to listener questions and topics before the spoiler cast, or go straight to the spoiler cast?
I said we do that because, Stranger Things came out a couple days ago, so I'm sure not everyone has finished it.
Well, let's kick off our listener questions and topics then. Who would like to go first?
I guess I will go ahead and go, since apparently these are mostly my friends who asked this week. My friends like me more. No,
that's true.
My friends are awful.
These are actually all leftovers from last week when I asked, because they all asked them after the podcast was already going or had been long finished. But my friend Elizabeth Groves would like to ask the question, why does Nintendo always release things early and underpowered? Or more politely phrased, Wii U release / early sales versus Switch release / early sales. Not 100% sure what she means. Do you have an opinion on this, TJ?
Yeah, I don't quite understand it either. I like at first, like the why does Nintendo always release things early and underpowered? Like I kind of understood that, but then when she talked more about like Wii U release / early sales versus Switch release and early sales, if she's implying that the Wii U failed because it wasn't nearly as powerful as the other consoles out at the time, I'm sure that had something to do with it. But I think the Wii U's failure mostly revolved around its horrible marketing and just the confusion around it. Not everyone knew exactly what Wii U was. They thought it was just an addition to the Wii, and that was like the nail in the coffin. Nintendo was trying to like piggyback off of the Wii branding, but by the time the Wii U came out, the Wii was already dying.
Yeah. Well, and by the time it had some really great games also, like it took forever for it to get a system seller.
Yeah.
And even that, like, what would you argue the system seller of the Wii U was? Was it the Wind Waker remake?
Oh no, I don't even think that.
Probably the Smash Brothers or Mario Kart 8, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really think, I would go with those too.
Yeah, like I know my ex bought it for Wind Waker, and got the Wind Waker bundle because it had the cool like Zelda themed gamepad. But,
well, even Mario 3D World, I think Mario Odyssey is going to blow Mario 3D World out of the water.
Oh,
I hope so. Man.
But I mean, as far as like Elizabeth saying like releasing things early and underpowered, I think it's a bit different with the Switch because considering the fact that it's portable, I don't know how much more powerful it could be at this time without the cost being, astronomical.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you guys feel, but obviously they can't port everything over from other consoles to Switch, but I still haven't reached that point where I feel like the Switch is underpowered. Like I'm not playing Mario Odyssey and going like, oh, this could look so much better or run so much better. And the fact that, Switch is getting, Doom and Skyrim and Wolfenstein 2, mind you, they might not look as pretty. And like, Doom runs at 30 frames instead of 60 frames. But the fact that they're able to port that, is saying a lot about the system too. Yeah. So would it be a dream scenario where the Switch is as powerful as an Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro? Absolutely. That would be the best thing ever. But considering what it does, I feel like it wasn't a mistake to release Switch in the current state like it was the Wii U.
And even thinking back to the Wii, everyone gave the Wii crap for not really pushing into the next generation of graphics. And that it wasn't even HD. 480p was as good as you could get with the Wii. And for that time, that was a little bit ridiculous. But it kept the cost of the system extremely low, and it kept the game development process cheap as well.
I mean, the Switch was what, 300, something like that.
Yep.
And it had an incredible launch title, with Breath of the Wild, and it's had a lot of really good games since then, including the Mario Kart port and now Mario Odyssey. I think they finally got it right with Switch, and I'm thrilled with it.
Yeah. And look at all the indie developers even jumping on board and porting stuff over. I mean, a lot of people now prefer to have the Switch version just because the option for portability.
Yeah, like pretty much everyone on every gaming podcast listen to, and they talk about a game like, why is this not on Switch?
Like at the PS4 event today, Spelunky 2 was announced, and the internet blew up saying, please announce this for Switch. Yep. And like I saw someone tweet, it's a shame that they had the exclusive announcement, but everyone's going to wait for it to be on Switch.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah. Like I've heard a ton about Stardew Valley again the past few weeks because it's on Switch.
Yeah.
Like I'm even considering buying it again on Switch just because like that game seems perfect for handheld.
Yeah.
Just good on Nintendo. Such a good console.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, I think you're right. When it comes to the Wii U, I think they really messed up there. I think the Wii was a totally different thing. I think Nintendo's mentality at the time was, let's make this as cheap as possible because we want every home to have a Wii. And a lot of homes don't have kids that, worry about graphics. They have, a lot of elderly people too. I mean, all those elderly bowling groups. Yes. There were elderly people that would have weekly Wii bowling groups instead of going to a bowling alley. And it was a legit thing that lasted for a long time. They don't care if it's not in high def. They just want to see the ball rolling down the lane. So Nintendo did that, and it worked for, a few years. And then people started going, okay, well, we're kind of over this. What's the next big thing? And they just kind of missed the mark with Wii U.
Yep. But sweet. So the next question comes from my friend Spencer Dixon. Says Thor Ragnarok preview, comedy or action movie? So we'll start with there.
¿Por qué no los dos?
Exactly. I think it's both.
Yeah, I think either, depending on the movie, to the betterment or detriment of it, every single Marvel movie is from here on out is pretty much going to be a comedy and an action movie all in one.
Well, especially with Chris Hemsworth. I think that whoever directed this finally realized what Joss Whedon got all the way back from the Avengers is that Thor is funny.
Yep. He is.
And like Chris Hemsworth is funny.
It's very funny.
So like I think that is the way to go. And I think that people have had enough of dark and gritty for now, especially when it comes to our hero movies. Like heroes are supposed to come save us from the dark and dreary world. Like they're not supposed to bring the dark and dreary world. Like, at least in my opinion anyway.
And I agree for the most part. I would just say that depending on the situation that's happening, they probably shouldn't. And that's actually another criticism people have had about Thor Ragnarok, is that Ragnarok is literally the end of all things, but it's very, very, very funny the entire time. And even though I haven't seen the movie, I can't judge it. I would kind of put a little bit on Age of Ultron on that. They tried to make Ultron like really, really funny, and it didn't work for me like at all. I just so
well, and that doesn't always have to be like slapstick, but
yeah,
I think there needs to be like Guardians 1 level of humor.
Yeah.
Like where it can be serious and funny at the same time.
Well, I thought Spider-Man Homecoming especially like nailed that. It had the perfect blend of action and drama and comedy.
Yeah, we often talk about that scene in the kitchen and the scene right after in the car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
as one of the best moments of the movie.
Yep.
And probably one of the most intense moments in all the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Nobody was laughing, but yet that movie is still very funny.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the right tone you should aim for most superhero movies. Obviously, some are going to be darker than others. Like you don't want like a super funny Batman movie.
No.
And again, not to be a dead horse, but Ultron, it was my favorite Avengers villain. Probably, I mean, it still is, but the movie version just didn't stack up because the Ultron is probably one of the scariest Avengers villains, but he just like made him a slapsticky comedy like version of Ultron that was nothing like the comic book Ultron, and so
yeah. Well, and let's be realistic here. Do you know anyone that really likes the first two Thor movies? That really thinks, man, those are some of the best Marvel movies. Like, no, they're really not that great. No. They're not. I mean, just because it's dull. And now I like the fact that Thor has been spending time with all these other characters that are witty and funny, and he's seeing these different worlds and stuff now. So, like, why wouldn't he start becoming that way?
Yeah, I agree.
Makes sense.
So. Sweet. More with his question. He continues on. The state of superhero movies shows, and he kind of goes on, Justice League versus DC movies, Dark. So yeah, let's start with those. State of superhero movies.
I was worried about fatigue, but the fact that Guardians 2 came out and is one of, if not my favorite Marvel movie, and then Spider-Man, it was also fantastic, and it's looking like Thor is going to be fantastic. If they keep pumping out this quality that I really enjoy, then have at it. I don't think it's going to die anytime soon. And that's one of the advantages of the quote-unquote superhero genre, is that they could really be different genres of movies. Because Doctor Strange is significantly different than Guardians of the Galaxy, even though they're both Marvel superhero movies.
And I think that's the best thing we saw, especially from like Logan. This year is it was kind of like a superhero western, and they're starting to experiment. Like I think New Mutants has a big horror twist coming up. Whether that's going to be successful or not, I don't think so. But it's fun that they are merging the different superhero movies with different genres. I think that's a fun way to go.
As far as Justice League and DC movies, dark. DC's always been a little bit darker than Marvel. I think the current DCU is a little bit too dark.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, the thing I worry about when it comes to the superhero movie fatigue is Hollywood's hitting the point where they're running out of the like heavy hitting, really well-known characters, and now they're having to dip into the lesser-known characters. And I think it's great that they're giving the opportunity to those characters to become as, mainstream as, Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Spider-Man. But I just don't know if people are really going to latch onto those characters that they don't really know very well.
It all depends on if they do it right. Nobody cared about Iron Man nor the Guardians.
But I feel like Iron Man was well known. Like, I think even casual, like even people that weren't into comic book movies and stuff, you could say Iron Man and they would at least know who it was. But, when you say like Black Panther or even Doctor Strange or, Captain Marvel, even Ant-Man. Look at Ant-Man. I love Ant-Man. I think Ant-Man's great. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies, but look at the numbers that did compared to all the other,
Yeah, it's
more
true.
well-known characters.
I think
So,
Ant-Man, just the name had an uphill battle from the beginning.
Yeah, and plus with it being Paul Rudd, people probably didn't really understand what they were getting themselves into. So, yeah. So I don't know. That's what I kind of worry about. That, especially once these characters start getting older and they're going to start like falling off. Like, what happens when Robert Downey Jr. leaves the Marvel universe, and then Chris Evans, and eventually Chris Hemsworth. Like, when they go away, are these other actors that they're getting, are they strong enough to keep it afloat?
We'll see. If not,
I
it
hope
was a good
so.
run.
I think so far, yes, with like Spider-Man and Black Panther. Too much more beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I also don't know that we need to have a massive lead up to Thanos moment again in the future for it to still be a good Marvel movie run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, who's to say at that point you don't start then recasting or evolving the storylines? Like, who's the next Captain America? Who's the next Iron Man? Like,
I definitely think, Captain America's mantle is just going to go to Bucky.
Yeah.
As far as Iron Man, who knows?
And then
Well,
you get another movie or two out of those people, and then you just keep that's what the comics have been doing this whole time.
Yeah. Well, Infinity War is gonna break all sorts of records. I mean, that's gonna be just gigantic, like as big as movies can possibly get.
Yeah, in cost and budget, if nothing else.
Yeah. So
cool. And then the last part of his question is games we're excited about between now and the end of the year. And I think the biggest one obviously is Battlefront 2 for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
really happy that Wolfenstein is getting very positive reviews. I look forward to sinking my teeth into it once I've completed Mario and my Destiny 2, playing has simmered down a bit.
Nice.
One really interesting thing I heard about Wolfenstein 2 there are a lot of very gory moments, like really intense gory moments.
I love it.
And it happens like during cutscenes, but it's always from your character's point of view. So if you want, you have the option to like physically make your character look away.
Yeah, I've heard about people doing that.
Yeah, that's really neat. That's a cool way to kind of like, without having to censor the whole thing, just let the player decide if they want to see it or not without having to skip the cutscene.
Yep.
Huh, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very excited about that one. I'm debating whether I want to play through the first one again or not, because it's just been a while and I might want a story refresher.
I still have not played it, and I have it. It's been sitting on my shelf for a couple of years now, and I still have not played it. Yeah, I heard it.
I'm one who really enjoys a well-structured, shooter campaign, and that was one of the best. And so it was just such a pleasant surprise when it came out a few years ago, and so I'm glad this one has lived up.
I played so much Wolfenstein on my computer when I was a kid. Wolfenstein 3D.
So
much.
Oh man, you need to play it because you will adore it. There's so many fun callback stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome. A couple other games that are kind of on my radar a little bit. Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are out in November also on the 3DS.
Oh my gosh. I saw a news article about that today. That made me be like, oh crap, I might need to buy this.
Oh yeah?
What's that?
That Team Rocket is back.
Oh crap! Yep, I need to finish.
I was like, no, what have you done?
I need to finish Sun and Moon and then get ready for that. If that's true, holy crap, I'm excited.
Yeah. So I'm like,
that's a good move on their part.
Well, because that was, this is going to sound, maybe controversial, but like the game that killed my love of Pokemon was Ruby and Sapphire. I was very, very, very hardcore into Gen 1 and Gen 2, the red, blue, gold, silver gens. And was very, very excited for the Game Boy Advanced one to come out. But when it came out, it had like completely new characters in a completely new setting, had story-wise nothing to do with the first one. And then like I felt like that one really pushed like the new Pokemon on you. And I was like, I just want like a Charmander, please. And then because it was a Game Boy Advance, generation jump, you couldn't trade or get any of your old Pokemon from Gen 1 or 2 at the time. And so it was like, and then you couldn't catch them all in those games, literally, at the time. You had to wait until the Fire Red and Leaf Green came out to get the Gen 1s again. And then like the fact that it was like Team Magma and Team Aqua, I was like, what the hell is this? So
actually, in terms of villainous plans, though. Like Team Magma and Team Aqua actually had some pretty legitly terrifying, like world-ending plans in mind.
Yeah, I just felt at the time when I was a kid that the story like wasn't resolved in the first one. You know, like Team Rocket was still around, Giovanni was missing, and like they took over the radio tower in Gen 2, like to try to like find Giovanni and use that radio tower. I mean, I don't know, like Team Rocket wasn't done yet for me. And then just kind of like introduced these new villains, and then that's the pattern that all the Pokemon games have gone, you know, from now. But
if that's really important to you, do not play Sun and Moon. I'm just gonna tell you that right off the. You should maybe play Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but the bad guys that I've encountered so far, maybe it gets better, but like Team Skull or whatever are the dumbest, like least threatening villains in Pokemon history.
Well, I mean, since then I've accepted the fact that, you know, each new gen has a new different team villain, you know, so to speak. I did play X.
They're so stupid.
And so, yeah. So, well, if Team Rocket is back and people like love their return, there might be a reason for me to jump into Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, but we'll see.
Two more things real quick to finish this out. Then we'll get to the last question. There's an RPG called Vampire that I'm really excited to look into, although it was announced that it was delayed, so I'm kind of sad about that. But Vive also just announced a new bundle for $599, and it comes with the Star Trek Bridge Crew and the Fallout 4 VR for $599 and the Vive system altogether.
I picked up Star Trek Bridge Crew, but I haven't played it yet.
And so I am really close to buying a Vive.
Someday.
Even though I have nowhere to play it.
Well, if you do get it, then we could play Star Trek Bridge Crew, because I've been waiting for someone to play it with.
It's true. I can play all the sit-down Vive games. That'd be fine. But anyway, so those are the things that are coming up that I'm excited about. Do you guys have any others that you want to talk about?
Just Doom VFR on that same note. You know, I love last year's Doom, and having it in VR, and people who have played it at trade shows and conventions have said it's really, really fun. So very excited for that.
How about you, TJ?
Well, there's something that came out last week, an indie game, but it's really kind of grabbed my attention. It's that Mummy Demastered. Have you guys seen that?
I saw it in a headline, but I didn't look into it.
Yeah, so it's the company WayForward. They've made a ton of great 2D like platforming games, but it's based off of Tom Cruise's The Mummy, but it is like a 2D, almost like 16-bit, like very Castlevania Metroid-like game. And you're just a soldier going around, and it's like Metroid where you're going through the map, and there's certain areas you can't get to unless you unlock certain weapons or abilities, but you're fighting like all these different monsters and everything, and no one was looking forward to it because it was based on a horrible movie, and then the game came out and people are raving about it, said it is a solid like Metroid-like action platformer, and it's really, really good, and don't let the movie license kind of keep you away from it. So I really wanted to play it, but Mario Odyssey was coming out, so I was like, that'll be my reward once I get through Mario Odyssey. Then it give me something to look forward to after that.
Mario Odyssey is a reward in itself.
That's right. What's it called? But yeah, The Mummy Demastered.
Huh. So
yeah, look it up. I mean, it's got amazing pixel art, and you're just fighting all these different enemies, and they said the game's full of surprises. So, you know, like, stay clear of spoilers if you have any interest playing it, but yeah, I'm looking forward to giving that a shot.
Huh. Sweet stuff.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
All right, we ready to hop into our spoiler cast for Stranger Things?
Did we want to? We're gonna postpone some other questions till next week.
We could go through a speed run.
Cool. Ryzen 7 versus Kaby Lake, aka Intel. AMD versus Intel processor. Go.
Intel, always.
I have no idea.
AMD is performing a little bit better, depending on which
they take turns performing a little bit better, but guess what? Processors haven't needed a bit upgrade for gaming in like 4 years. So
very true.
You buy i5 4750K, you know, that's the best possible processor you can get for gaming, or at least before you're just buying better processor power for no benefit. At least right now. So
Nice.
you know, you don't need to buy the newest and greatest processors. So
Cool.
I'm still happy with my Intel, and I don't know. I'm the sucker for just Intel and Nvidia everything. So sorry, I'm a shill.
It's okay. Lightning round, quicker. Video games to movies and movies to video games.
The Super Mario Brothers movie is the greatest video game movie of all time. I will fight you to the death on that fact.
Whatever. Street Fighter is so much better.
I'm cool with them. You know, I'm always excited for a good one to happen. It's too bad that it hasn't happened very often, if at all.
They tend to work better the other way around with the movies to video games rather than
GoldenEye.
opposite.
Avatar.
Let's see.
I love that game.
Old pixel art FF6 versus new pixel art Stardew Valley versus 3D, and their impact on experience, gameplay genres, replayability, etc.
It really depends on the game. As far as the pixel arts versus each other, I think new pixel art, Stardew Valley, is better because the NES and the Super NES had a lot of limitations that they tried to get around. Like I think if I remember correct, the NES could literally only display 16 colors.
Yeah.
And so you can still have like NES looking games like Shovel Knight, but they have a much better color palette to go from. And then of course Stardew Valley has the advantage of super high resolution, and so it's really just pixel art. They've taken a Super NES 16-bit style art, but have applied it with much better graphics results. So I definitely prefer that. As far as versus 3D, it really just depends. I think that the pixel art has aged a lot better, which is why we're seeing a lot of pixel art games nowadays versus like people aren't remaking N64 style graphics games for the most part.
Yeah.
Because it looks ugly. But at the same time, like Mario Odyssey wouldn't be our Mario Odyssey if it was a pixel art game.
Right. It's also, let's be honest, a lot easier to do.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. I think the rest of them are way too broad to tackle right now. We might kind of pick one up at a week or so. Okay. So let's get into our Stranger Things stuff.
Cue the theme music again, TJ. All right, so from here on out, full spoilers for both seasons of Stranger Things. So if you have not completed the season, pause this and come back to it later, or just say, screw you guys, I'm not going to listen to it. So, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
But here we go. All right, let's talk about The Great first, since TJ has a lot of things to say that are on the more negative side, but let's talk about what we love so far. First off,
I don't know if I want to end on the negative though.
Let's sandwich it.
Well, let me just make a point really quick that I've been thinking about this a lot because I don't want it to be all negative. I didn't hate it. I absolutely did not hate it. There were just a lot of things that I ended up having problems with, and it's because I love Stranger Things. I love that first season. I love the characters, the world they created. So I feel like my complaints after thinking about them for a while are valid and worth sharing. Not saying that everyone will agree with me, but I'm not being negative just for negativity's sake. I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not trying to. I apologize
if I made it seem that way.
Oh yeah, no, it's okay because I am going to say a lot of negative things, but I'm not trying to ruin it for anyone else. I would love for someone to counter it and go, oh well, I'm sorry you felt that way, but I think it was this way because of this. And then make me look at it in a different light. So I'm not being negative to ruin it for anyone.
Well, Trent liked episode 7, so we'll have that bout here in a little bit. But
oh wow, I feel like I need to go hide.
But again, let's talk about the great things. So I'll go ahead and get it just a bit started. That overall, I mentioned this at the beginning. I overall loved the season. I was very happy, and my eyes were glued to the screen for a good 80% of the season. And it was captivating. It kept me interested, and I think that the story direction they went was a good way to go for the most part. I think mainly with the exception of 11's storyline for the first 90% of the season. I love the Lovecraftian-esque villain of it. I mean, it's something that Mass Effect has in the form of the Reapers, and now that we have it in the Shadow Monster / the Mind Flayer, I love that type of stuff in general. And so that makes me very, very excited for the future of the series. So I overall really enjoyed it still.
Good. What about you, Trent?
I came out of it really happy, really loved it. I felt like especially the first third was just super strong. Coming away and being able to think about it more now after the fact, like if you told me to rate it at the very end, I would have given it like a 9.5. I'd probably settle down to like an 8.5 at this point. Really enjoyed a lot of it. I questioned a lot of the decisions, story decisions. I actually didn't like the villain. I thought it was hard to relate to and hard to feel like really scared of.
Oh yeah, the Mind Flayer in particular.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you. I think because you don't really know the extent of its abilities, you don't really know like what it can do, or if it has like a conscious mind where it knows what it's doing and it knows like, oh, this is the human world. I want to be in that world. Like you didn't really know its motives.
Yeah, and like how sentient is it? Like we know that it's sentient on some level, but like is it reacting more out of instinct or
Well, I kind of took their D&D talk to be literal, to where, you know, that may change as future seasons come, but as of right now, like the Mind Flayer, you know, travels dimensions and thinks of itself as, you know, the superior race. And I am even one who's at this point assumed that the Upside Down was a normal universe at one point, but that the state that it's in right now is because of it and what it has done to that universe. And it is seeking to enter our universe to do the same thing. That's why like the tentacles and the mold and all that stuff just spreads from the gates and underground, because that is ultimately what the Upside Down is currently, is what he wants our world to become.
I never thought of it that way.
And so in one of the behind the scenes things I really liked, what was the song they played? At the very end during the prom while they're all dancing. It's a very famous song. I can't think of what it.
I can't remember either.
Do they say at some point like "I'll be watching over you" or something? Oh my gosh!
It's like that every step you or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. Every step
you take,
I'll be watching you, and then they're playing that like while they're dancing, but then the ground tilts and it goes upside down, and it has the Mind Flayer looking over the school. And so it's a double meaning in the song that, you know, every step you take, every breath you take, I will be watching you, you know, planning his either revenge or his plan to enter back into our world again. So this could be, again, just me, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of forcing my perspective of it onto things that aren't there. But, you know, that's kind of what I got because, I don't know. The season 1 Demogorgon stuff was pretty much straight on, and so I kind of just assumed that because that's what the writers decided to tell us in the form of D&D of what the Mind Flayer does, that's a pretty good metaphor as to what is going on with the Mind Flayer.
Yeah, it felt hard to relate to, and since we're going full spoiler, the part where they like, you know, fever burn him out of will, I thought was a little bit. Like, I mean, if I was a super intelligent, like beyond this realm virus of some kind, and you're trying to burn me out of this host, I'm murdering this husk as I leave it. So like I thought that was a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
It was a little bit of a cheaty answer for me. It's like, well, this thing's super evil. Like we wouldn't just panic and then, like, because it's not actually dying. Like. I don't know.
And this might be, again, just sorry to interrupt, just pure conjecture on my part, but I didn't see it as him in particular. I felt it was just a piece of him or just a virus that he gave him to allow that connection, kind of like the Demodogs, you know, so to speak. Like they all had kind of their own individual personality, but were all controlled by the hive mind.
But doesn't it like fly out of him when they get it out?
Like a shadowy thing does, but it doesn't resemble the form of the Mind Flayer.
True.
So it's smoky, but that's kind of it.
And did that go anywhere, or like is that still around to like fly into somebody else? Like that's something that left unanswered too for me. I was curious about that.
That's probably a season 3 thing. People have theorized about the black hole talk that the cop gave toward the end, having something to do with it because it flew up into space.
Yeah.
Well, see, but I'm glad you bring that up because that was one of the problems I had with this season was how they handled the upside down in general in this season versus the first season, where only a few people went to the upside down in the first one, and it was a bad experience whenever anyone went in there.
Yeah.
And in this, people are jumping in and out. Tons of people are going back and forth between the upside down. Like Hopper digs that hole, and then he's in the upside down, and then they come and get him out, and then they go back in there. Like everyone's just going in and out like it's no big deal.
Well, technically, that was all still Hawkins. It was just underground, and it was being infected by the vines and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not quite sure that was the upside down, or if it's just like
the only person we saw
corruption of Earth, like I kind of mentioned earlier. If they're trying to turn Earth into what the upside down is, that's just the beginnings of it.
Yeah, the only people that really crossed over was Will, kind of, the weird guy who changed the battery of whatever their sensor thing was on the other side, and then 11 when she came back.
Yeah, 11 and Hopper. Oh, huh. Yeah, maybe I just misunderstood that then. But yeah, I guess that would make more sense that it's just the infected like tunnel that they're making underground.
That's what I saw it as, but the fact it wasn't clear is enough criticism enough.
Yeah.
But that's another thing too with the show. I remember reading an interview with the writers after the first season, and because people had all these questions, like, well, where's it going to go from here? And one thing they're really driving home was the fact that in season 2 they were really going to play off the story of the fact that Will was in the Upside Down for so long and how that can negatively affect you. But they also said, and let's remember, Will wasn't the only one that spent time in the Upside Down, and they were referring to Nancy and Joyce and Hopper. So I thought Will was going to be seeing all these like big side effects because he was in there the longest, but then those characters were also going to experience something because they spent time there. And they're basically saying it's not a good thing to spend time there. And they didn't do any of that in this one. None of those other characters were affected by it at all.
Yeah, that's good.
So that kind of makes me wonder. One of the big problems I had with this season was a lot of things felt forced. And that's one thing I loved about the first season was it felt very natural. And yeah, it played homage to a lot of classic 80s movies and stuff like that, but it never shoved it down your throat. And I feel like this one, they were really like pointing out those moments. I guess, like, how can I explain this? Just those moments were really in your face and obvious, where in the first season they just kind of blended through like with the season as it went on. And even like a lot of the jokes, like the humor, this season had some really funny parts, but I don't remember the first season ever feeling like a comedy, even though it had funny moments. They just felt more natural. And in season 2, they felt forced to me. I don't know if you guys felt the same way or noticed that.
You mentioned that in a message earlier a couple days ago, but I honestly don't quite feel the same. I felt the humor was relevant when it was relevant, especially around the characters that tend to be more humorous, like Destin, and Steve and things like that. But I felt that they didn't quite overdo it. I felt it was pretty appropriate, at least in the cinematic sense, when the comedy was used.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like it didn't really have a consistent tone like the first season did. I don't know. It just felt kind of all over the place to me.
I'll agree with that. I think one of the reviews I read and watched this weekend, since seeing it, I think that helped kind of put things in perspective for me is that I think the writers fell into a laying the seeds for season 3 trap, where they didn't focus enough on this season.
Yeah.
And it felt like we were just like getting ready for the next season.
Well, I feel like the writers took a lot of the small moments from the first season that fans really took a liking to and just amplified him in this season. Like, oh man, remember that scene in the first season where Steve had the baseball bat? Let's give him a baseball bat for pretty much the whole time he's on screen.
Right.
Like, oh, remember Dustin? Like, everyone loved him. He was a side character, but everyone loved how funny he was. Let's have him making jokes all the time. Like, I feel like they just took a lot of those little things and just, amplified them to the point where it just didn't feel natural.
Yeah. I can see that. I don't feel completely the same. I definitely feel like there was a few missteps here and there. I was never really terrified of the bad guy. I think that's part of the problem. Like I was terrified for Will,
Mm-hmm.
and like everything like that, but like the Demodogs or whatever, they never felt nearly as terrifying as the Demogorgon did.
No, and I agree, because that was the thing about the first season. The threat was this one monster that was going back and forth in between our world and the Upside Down. And it was these kids kind of grouping together, and then these adults eventually that were like, how do we take this thing down? And now they just amped that up too, to the point where now there's this big being kind of watching over and controlling everything, and this army of Demodogs. And it was just, they were all the same. Like, I didn't understand how they were growing at the rate they were, and where did all these other ones come from?
Yeah,
Like,
it
was
was a
this
great.
one?
It
What's
was a
that?
great twist. Like I loved when they all showed up and were surrounding Steve, but like I would have liked some explanation of where the heck all those other ones came from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good point.
were they growing up? Were they all in our world? And then, like, that's why they were growing at the rate they were? Like, did they all get planted at the same time? Like, this other one, did it just come over? Because it's been a year since the first one. The one that Dustin found in the garbage can, was that here for a whole year? And now Dustin interacting with it is making it grow? Or is that just, did it just get here and that's how it naturally grows? Like, I don't know.
Like, was it the thing that Will spit up into the sink?
Yeah,
Because they flashed back to that specifically, but then like
yeah.
that only explains one of them.
And I think that would be really cool if that ended up being the thing that Will spit up at the end.
Right.
And then it was kind of just living, and then Dustin eventually finds it and, starts raising it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, the threat of like the villains, I completely agree with you, Trent. It just didn't feel the same as the first season, where you're like, oh my gosh, there's this monster out there. It likes blood. Like, oh no, they're bleeding. Like, this monster's coming. And now it was just like, well, anything can happen at this point now.
Yeah.
And I also missed the evil government presence. Like, because I definitely didn't feel the same kind of threat from Paul Reiser that I felt from the original guy, Papa.
Well,
Whatever
see,
his name was.
when it comes to characters, Paul Reiser's character, Dr. Owens, I kind of liked what they did. They didn't just try and make a new Dr. Brenner. They had this guy come in and go, okay, they called me and they hired me to fix this. We made a mistake. We opened up this portal. We wanted to do this, but not have it end up this way. So they sent me here to fix it. But the problem is we don't know how to fix it.
Right.
So the question is he really a good guy and he's trying to fix this, or does he have his own motives that they were kind of hinting at, where he's filming all of them secretly? And why didn't he die when everyone else in the lab did? Like, he's in a hallway with a wound on his leg, but the dogs tore apart everyone else. Like, does he have some sort of control over them? Or am I overthinking it and he just happened to survive and lived at the end?
I think the tell there is, his interaction with Sean Astin at the end of Sean Astin's life. He legitimately wanted to get him out safe.
Yeah. And that's what I'm leaning more towards. But, and I guess I do kind of like that, where he was just a guy that got thrown into this and, like, the crap hit the fan and he just had to deal with it.
But it's like this really great force of like kind of human antagonism.
Yeah.
That existed in the first one just became like a bumbling bunch of like idiots that don't know what anything that's going on. And like in the first one, we realized that they were a bunch of bumbling idiots who didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
But at least they were scary about it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Something else I just realized while going through the cast on IMDb. Did you guys watch Power Rangers?
Yes, I could not for the life of me figure out who that kid or where I saw that kid from.
Right?
And yeah, then we looked it up after, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he was the Red Ranger, Bill.
Ah, my gosh.
I was like, the
I
whole
never
time,
realized.
like, he looks so familiar.
I thought the same thing. I was like, what? But yeah.
So I thought that was so funny. Like, looked at it, I was like, holy crap, that's the Red Ranger. Ugh.
Well, out of all the new characters since you brought Bill up, I thought Bill was awful.
Yeah,
I did
I
not
agree.
like that character. He did not fit in. I didn't understand his purpose. And the first half of the season, I kept telling my wife, like, man, I cannot wait to see what's going on with Bill and Max. Like, what is their story? What's going to be their reveal? And then you just find out that they're in an abusive family. Like, the father's abusive to him, and then he takes it out on her, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yep. It's such it's such a good potential payoff that wasn't realized. Like, there was one moment in the car where he says to Max, like, we're here, like, we're stuck here and it's your fault.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, does she have some sort of like weird dark past that we're gonna find out about? Like, nope, just kidding.
No, and it's none of that. And it's like, I don't know if they created that character to compete with Steve, but their rivalry never felt like equal.
No.
Yeah.
Steve didn't really care.
Yeah.
Billy's like this
Bill
crazy-
acted like Steve cared.
Yeah, Billy was like this crazy, like, sociopath narcissist guy who was just like acting out because he was being abused by his dad. Like,
Yeah.
it had nothing related to Steve.
He was too much of a character, just in general. And then by the end, it's like, you know, he tries to redeem himself. Like, he gives Max that look, just like, okay, you know, like, I'm not going to be mean to you anymore. Like, I'm sorry. But it's like, he was awful. He was
like,
a horrible person.
Like, I kept leaning over to Ryan, like, around episode like 8 or something. I was like, he's gonna have just a horrible death, right? Like,
Yes.
and no, like, and that's the same thing with like with Sean Astin's character, Bob. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
And it's like Ryan had this really cool theory right after the first episode that, like, he works for the government and
That's what I thought too.
Joyce, and like, we're gonna find out that he's like this really creepy evil guy. And I was like, that would have been so much better than the actual storyline.
Well, see, but I actually, of all the new characters, I really liked Bob. Like, I thought of that too, but then a part of me was like, I kind of hope he's not like that. I want him to just be this nice, just genuine guy that gets thrown into this and is like, well, you know what? I really love this family. I want to be a part of it. And if this is what I have to deal with, then I'm going to deal with it. And that's what he did.
I took the same mental path as you did, TJ. So by the end, I was really rooting for him to make it out of there alive, even though I knew he wasn't.
But see, look at that. There's all these characters that we thought had like a deeper backstory or some sort of secret, and none of them did.
Yep. And I think that's part of what the first season kind of trained us to look for. And it was not realized.
And, you know, even in the first season, like Nancy and Steve, by the very end, they're together. And then in the very beginning of this one, they're already fighting. It's like a year has passed, but we didn't get to see any of that.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see them have their moments together. And now we're just supposed to believe, like, oh, well, it's not working out. And then you're like, but why wouldn't it work out? Like, it's Steve.
Yeah.
Like, Steve is great. Like, what do you not like about Steve?
Yeah, that was a big problem I generally had. Like, the whole scene when she's drunk and, like, saying all that stuff to Steve in the bathroom, I was like, what? Like, where is this coming from? And then it made me even more mad that it felt like the Duffer Brothers were trying to pander to the audience with all the Justice for Barb stuff because, you know, they kind of glossed over her death, and now a year later they make it, like, super important to everybody.
I really feel like in the first season, they were not expecting that fandom for Barb.
Yeah.
I don't think they were expecting that at all, and now they were like, oh crap, we need to resolve this.
Well, even in the first season, I was fine with the level it was taken on. Like, I wasn't like Justice, I wasn't one of those people. I mean, it's like, okay, like, sure, it sucks, but, you know,
I think
random teenagers kill in movies all the time.
It needed to be wrapped up in season 2, but I don't think they needed to do it at the level that they did. I think it did need some closure, because at the end it's like, well, wait a second, okay, they found Will, but what about Barb? Like, how come no one's looking for Barb? But
like,
yeah,
they found Barb, didn't they? They found her body.
They did, but I mean, like the public, like the general
yeah.
public, like she just disappears and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people go missing all the time. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, the
Maybe
town
not in
was so
small
worried
towns,
about Will, and I guess they found Will. They, the dead Will, which wasn't really him. But then, he came back. So how come no one else was like, well, wait a second, if this kid came back, then why can't Barb come back?
Yeah, that's true, and I agree they should have touched on it. But yeah, it's like they didn't know what to do with Nancy, so it's like let's just make her on a crusade to avenge Barbara. The whole
Yeah,
she needed something else to do. I just can't wait for the season 3 story arc, Justice for Muse. Like,
yeah, I'm totally on board the Justice for Muse train.
Or Justice for Bob.
Heck no, Justice for Muse. It's all going to be about the cat. I love that cat. I'll be honest. A surprisingly good acting moment for me was Dustin's mom when she was being sent off to go look because supposedly that neighbor saw the cat or whatever, and she was just like so hopeful but so sad, and like she stole like that one scene.
She was great.
My heartstrings were like ripping. I was like, oh my, she's so sad about her cat.
and her character made sense because that's exactly how a kid like Dustin's mom would be.
Exactly.
Like they nailed it. It
was perfect. Oh, and I loved Lucas's family.
See, I thought they did a little too much with his sister.
I did. I
sister,
agree.
Yes. Parents, I thought were great.
Oh, the parents were awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, his sister, I'm like, okay, why does she have as big of a part as she does when Mike barely has any lines?
Because he was busy filming it.
But what else was I gonna say?
Should
we get to the big one, the 11th storyline?
We will in a moment. Let me see. Let me take a look at my notes here. How about that one character, the detective, that was with Jonathan and Nancy? Way too goofy.
The conspiracy theorist guy?
Yeah, the conspiracy guy. Yeah.
I think he fit well in the context that he was given, but he was just another symptom of the bad Barbara storyline.
Yeah.
I thought that the actor did great. His idea of the whole the way you attack an organization like this is that you have to water it down.
Yeah.
I thought that was really smart. And his ability to just articulate how much Nancy and Jonathan were lying to each other about their feelings for each other, I thought was really funny. But yeah,
and I have nothing wrong with that, but that leads back to the fact that we didn't even get to see Steve and Nancy together. So it's like she's hidden feelings for each other between her and Jonathan, but it's like, well, what about Steve? You didn't even give us a shot to see that.
She doesn't deserve him.
I think the story that played out that they didn't do a very good job of showing was that at the end of season 1, when she went back to Steve, she made the safe choice, knowing that she already, on some level, knowing that she didn't like him, or at least that she had feelings for Jonathan already. And so, we fast forward a year later, and she's basically, their relationship is falling apart because she's been pretending this whole time. And poor Steve doesn't know any better, I guess.
Well, see, and that's the thing that I think bothers me the most about it is Steve, he was a kind of a bad dude in the beginning, but then he really changed his ways. He stepped up for her when she absolutely needed it the most. Then he's been nothing but faithful to her and just an overall good guy that really genuinely cared about her. And she's just blowing him off like he's kind of like an ass. But he's not. So that's why that didn't really work for me.
Well, and I think that's the reason that they needed to do a better job of showing. Their relationship needed to last a little bit longer in this season because, she's known for a year now that she doesn't really like this guy, and so she and if you're in a relationship with someone for long enough that isn't working, it just your feelings and your reactions just become more toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what she was showcasing, but all of us as audience members were like, "What the crap? Where is this coming
that's
from?"
A good point. And I feel like you hit the nail on the head with the timeline. If this didn't take place a year after, if it took place a month after, and she was doing that, it would have been a lot more believable. Like, oh, okay, well, they just entered a relationship. It's clearly not working out. But yeah, to stay with him for a year.
Yeah.
And then we're just seeing like the, you know, the other end of that. It just didn't work.
Agreed.
So I guess we can get to it now. The elephant.
We're going to be wrapping
room.
up soon, so let's go ahead and end cap on this.
Yes, which is simultaneously my favorite and biggest nitpick of the season. Is the 11 storyline.
Yes. So 11 was a very underused character.
Oh
I thought the stuff with her and Hopper was awesome.
Ditto.
But I also did not like how 11, you know, is 11 alive at the end of the first season? You don't know for sure. Hopper leaves her the waffles. Okay, she's probably still out there. But then they go back and show that she gets rid of the Demogorgon, goes into the Upside Down, and then immediately comes back and is just living in the woods on her own for 6 months?
Something like that.
I'm like, that's it? Like, she wasn't stuck in the Upside Down at all? She went there and just walked right out?
That wasn't 6 months.
Here
It
the
seemed
whole
like
time?
it'd be like a week or two because of the 340 days or whatever.
No, because her hair was way longer. When Hopper found her, when she left the Upside Down, her hair was short. And when Hopper found her, her hair was a pretty decent length at that point.
Yeah, true. Didn't think about that.
Yeah, but even that could be depending on how fast your hair grows, that could be 3-4 weeks.
Well, but then you can say it's been a year and you see how long her hair is. It hasn't grown that much. It's not like she has a really... But see, something like that could just be an oversight. Right. But that's what disappoints me because I didn't feel like season 1 had those oversights.
Well, I don't know if I just fell asleep during this part, when I was trying to catch up, or from what I remember, she finds a little bin in the forest with the food in it, and then she spies Hopper putting it in the food into the bin, and then the next scene of them together, he's bringing her into the barn, into the cabin thing.
Yeah.
How did he convince her to do that?
Well, she was going there and getting the food, so obviously he knew she was taking it, and then eventually she showed herself to him.
Huh.
So then she approached him and then instantly just trusted him, and that's when they went to the cabin.
I guess so. The power of egos.
Yeah. Oh, and that it's that's another thing in the first season. Okay, we get that 11 loves Egos. How many times did they talk about Ego in this season?
Too many.
Yes, that's another example of oh, what did people like in the first season? Oh, let's have a bunch of that. Which before we get into the final topic of episode 7 and just 11 in general, I walked away from this season thinking it feels like the Duffer Brothers had full control over the first season, and then when it blew up and became an overnight success, that's when the producers and everyone stepped in and Netflix and was like, okay, you can still write the second season, but we're going to tell you what you need to put in there. I feel like they really interfered with the whole writing process.
Huh.
It would make sense, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We won't know for sure, but that's why I think this season kind of did all of the things that the first season didn't. Because I don't understand how they could have something so tight-knit and just so thought out and then have the follow-up season be all over the place. People having all these questions well, wait, why did this happen? How does this work? Where did these come from? And in the first season, you don't really ask any of that stuff.
I think part of it is just because sequels are hard.
Yeah.
And the third act of everything seems to be how did this reviewer put it? The boss level of screenwriting.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's it could have been interference. It could have been just that they didn't really know what to do. Because one of the interviews that I read of those guys is that they had to start writing the sequel before the first season aired because they had to keep start their pitch to Netflix already.
Oh, wow.
So they didn't know if it was going to be a big blow up success or not.
But see, then, that example I said before, where they said the second season was going to focus on Will being in the Upside Down and how it affected him and how it affected those other characters. Yeah. If that was their plan from the beginning and then that wasn't anywhere in this one, why did they get rid of that? Why did they make that change?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So, but episode 7, The Other Sister, or The Lost Sister, I think it's called.
Lost Sister.
Yeah. Who wants to start?
I will, since I definitely didn't like it, but I feel each of you will represent each side of the argument better than I will. So I definitely didn't like it. It felt like it was a really, really crappy like X-Men pilot spinoff. Or kind of what you mentioned, TJ, like it's a studio like, okay, well, we got to start preparing for the greater expanded universe of this because this is going to become a superhero show. Maybe that's not exactly what they said, but so we had that and just 8 like sitting out there with 11 like doing the whole like, I can feel your anger.
Yeah.
It makes you powerful, just that BS, and then just it just felt very, very cliche in every sense of the word. I just really didn't enjoy it. I think thinking back, I think I could have been spoon fed that storyline a little bit better if it was intercut with the stuff going on back home. Like if they spread it over like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Like, and then kind of had the 2 episode endings to where the Demodogs are all coming up, and then her seeing that and realizing she needs to go home kind of happening simultaneously rather than just like stuffing it all into a single standalone episode. I think it would have been more easy to digest. But
basically what they did, they Walking Dead us. The dead did us.
Yeah.
Because
it's 100% true.
Episode 6 is the only episode that ends on a major cliffhanger in the whole season. Huge cliffhanger, and then the next episode has nothing to do with it, and then the following episode 8, picks up right where episode 6 left off.
And
it's like, you can't do that. Like, people don't like that. And I read in an interview today with the Duffer Brothers, they said they're defending that episode. They said they didn't want to get shoehorned and they want to expand and try new things, so they intentionally made that episode the way they did. But they also warned everyone that they're still going to continue to try doing new things with the show. And that worries me.
Yeah, it worries me too. It worries me that the storyline for season 3 is just going to be 11 and 8 going on an adventure to find all the numbers and create their new school for the gifted.
Yeah, like to fight what's in the Upside Down.
Yeah.
Like they need as much power as they can get.
As much as we were talking earlier about how much we love superheroes and we're not getting any fatigue. That's not what I want in my Stranger Things, if that's what their plan is.
Well, maybe I'm being like picky here, but how did 11 even know how to ride a bus? How did she know the whole process of getting on a bus and traveling somewhere? When was she ever taught that?
Yeah, she didn't even know how to say 8:15.
Yeah, she could barely talk. And she learned how to ride a bus. And I thought Hopper was going to bring that up when he picked her up and found her, but he talked about like where did you go? And she only talked about getting on that, or like hitchhiking with that truck. Yeah. It was a nice guy in a truck or whatever they said. But how did she know the whole process of getting like a ticket for the bus, riding it to where she needed to go, knowing exactly where she needed to go? Like maybe that's nitpicky, but I don't know. I don't think so.
It was definitely glossed over. So I will agree. The timing of it was horrible. Like to jar you away from like the best cliffhanger of the season.
Yeah.
And then like, oh look, here's 11's crazy wacky adventures. Like meanwhile in Chicago, like, I agree that if it was interspersed, it would have been better. It was really funny that Ryan used the language that he did, because the reviewer that I watch also compared it to like a cheap X-Men. I think it was really good for a couple of small things. I think 8's power should have been exactly 11's powers. I don't like that they have varying powers.
Yep.
Because then it is too much like X-Men. Like I want all the numbers to be this. I want all the powers to be the same. Except for maybe like the one thing I kept hoping would happen this season, and maybe I'll get next season, is because I keep hoping that Will, because of his like constant connection for like the past 2 years with the Upside Down, maybe we'll give him like some kind of like void powers of some kind where he can like, use the Upside Down against itself or something. Like I think that would be kind of cool. But like it just kind of like be the opposite of 11 in a way.
But is that the direction that you would really want the show to go in, where people start developing powers?
Yes.
I don't feel that way. I like just 11 having powers and the rest of it being just a.
See, in
my
my
that this is and that he's the cleric. Cleric has magic. Like that's been my expectation this whole time. Like I kept imagining that, like, Dustin and Lucas and the rest of them are gonna more embody like their D&D roles as the time goes on. They're kind of like Steve with the baseball bat. Like, he's gonna show them how to like fight without powers while they fight with powers, and like they work together because you need both. I think that would be a really cool way to advance the storyline, because it can't just be that 11 keeps saving the day. Like, that's going to get really boring really fast.
Yeah, that's true.
But 11 didn't really necessarily save the day. She like cleaned it all up at the end, but it's not like the other people were doing things that didn't matter.
No, and then that's the thing. That's why I loved the finale the way it was. Like, Will did what he could, which was very little. He was like the evil spy guy, but he was like tapping out the Morse code thing or whatever. And like everybody else did what they could do to help, and it was all needed and all useful. But I mean, let's be honest, without 11, they're all screwed.
Yeah. Well, I was always under the assumption from season 1, I always assumed that 11 was number 11, meaning there were 10 people before her, but they were all failed experiments. And 11 was the first one that they actually were onto something and were able to start like honing her powers and teaching her how to use it. I never thought that there were 11 different people with all different abilities. Like, that never crossed my mind at all.
Yep, same.
And then, like you said, Trent, the fact that number 8 has different powers, so that means there's at least 11 people out there that all have different abilities. It makes 11 feel way less special.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I agree with you, Ryan, where I want 11 to be the only one with powers because that's her. She's 11. She's like the ultimate hero when it comes to like her capabilities.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, so 11 escaped the lab. This also means 8 escaped the lab too. So it's like, did all these characters just escape the lab at different times? If so, like, their security is terrible at that facility.
Well, I hope that they take some of the criticisms that they found from the season, and maybe like those are the only 2 powers, or they're very like mind power only.
Yeah.
So they're just varying kinds of like, telekinetic, telepathic type stuff. And I don't want there to be a lot of people with powers, but I think it makes sense for Will to come out of this with something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not
mentioning like his true sight thing. Like, they thought that's what he was doing at first or whatever. I thought that was kind of cool. And like, I don't want everybody to have powers. Like, that's, this isn't like Flash or anything like that. But
you get some powers, and you get some powers. Everybody gets powers because it's the CW.
Well, even 11's journey, it was, okay, I'm on my own. Okay, I'm living with Hopper. Okay, I don't want to be stuck in this house. I want to do what I want. I want to go see my mom. Okay, I saw my mom. I don't want to live here. I want to go find this sister that my mom somehow told me about.
Right.
Okay, I found her. No, I want to be back with my friends. Like, 11 doesn't know what she wants, it seems like. But even the whole mom thing, I feel like in season 1, they had this tight-knit universe and this world they created. And then in this one, it just wasn't nearly as tightly wound. Because, like, her mom, for example, how was her mom communicating with her in the lights?
Yeah.
Will did that when he was in the Upside Down. Her mom's not in the Upside Down.
Or
so how
is
was
she?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
and then,
I thought with the whole nose bleeding thing, like, it seemed that they were intimating that the mom had similar powers that 11 did. Which
well, see, that's what I'm wondering too. If, like, okay, is that the route they're going to take, where they stole 11 from her for a reason because she is special?
I think so. In that case, like, did she not know that she was? Because, like, she let people like toss her around when she could have been throwing them around. Yeah,
I don't know. And then why would the mom?
So many questions.
Why would the mom want her to go with this lost sister when the mom seriously saw that girl for maybe 5 seconds?
Yeah.
And had no idea who she was, didn't know anything about her. Why would she want 11 to go to that girl?
Well, she definitely wouldn't approve when she saw how she dressed 11. So
Exactly.
I just kind of a fun thing.
And who she hung out with.
I pulled up the IMDb episode rankings here, and it's interesting. From Chapter 1, Mad Max, the rating increases every single episode with the exception of Episode 7. So I'll just start with, I'll skip Episode 7 and just go 1 through 9 here. It goes 8.6, 8.8, 9.0, 9.1, 9.3, 9.5, and then Episode 7, and then 9.6 and 9.7. So it goes up, and then Episode 7 is kind of at a 6.8. All that.
Well, I would give this season a solid 7 out of 10, but I really think if episode 7 wasn't in, I gave it a 7, and I hate if episode 7 wasn't in there, I feel like I would have rated it at least a little bit higher, but it kind of soiled it because I'm really worried about the direction they're going to take it in solely based on that episode.
Yeah. It definitely has a feeling that that's going to be the season 3 storyline now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't bode well. So hopefully those meddling producers at Netflix see that 6.8 episode score on IMDb and then other places online and say like, okay, nope, you're not doing that.
Yeah, I think the magic of the show, or at least part of it, is the small town thing. Like,
yeah.
I like that a lot. It did a lot of things that were very needed for the character. Like I thought that it resolved Eleven's motivations and like kind of her lingering fear about Papa, and I think that like the moment where she finally realized, like, because like in all of her flashbacks, she kept saying like she had all these people keep telling her, "This is your home now. This is your home now. This is your home now." And then she finally realized at the end of 7, like, no, like I need to go home. Like I know where home is now, and that this isn't it.
Yeah.
And like I thought that was a really cool moment. There were other things about it that I thought were interesting. Like I think her realizing that like killing people just because you can and because they make you angry, like there's more, like life's more complicated than that. Like with the whole like the guy's kids and everything.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. I think it could have been done so much better.
Yeah.
And I think they needed a much better reason for her to have been gone the entire season. Like I think the first 6 episodes where she wasn't there pissed me off more than episode 7 did.
Yeah.
She was doing something. Like I was just going nuts with her in that cabin house the whole time. I'm like, you guys are having problems. She is the answer to your problems. Like we learned this last time. Get her out there now. Like go.
And I mean, like, all the stuff they went through, I know ultimately Hopper's goal was to keep her safe, and that's why he kept her a secret from everyone. But it's like she went through the whole experience with Mike and the other kids. She has such a strong bond with Mike. For him to keep them apart just didn't really feel right to me.
Yep, and that was part of the magic of the first season to me, was like those kids' interaction with each other.
Yeah.
And like that was gone the whole season until the very last episode.
Yep.
Or 2 episodes.
Because that was another thing that was so special about the first season. Everyone, the groups are kind of doing their own things, but by the last couple episodes, they're all together. And you're like, this is what I've been waiting for. Everyone to be on the same page, adults, teenagers, kids, all working together. And then they separated them all again. Yeah. Even more so than the first season. And then by the end, they bring them all together, but by then it's too late.
Yeah. And like that's like when Mike literally starts hitting Hopper, I'm like, yes, this is me in this moment, like punching the writers. Like, why would you keep these kids apart the whole season? Oh, drove me nuts.
Yeah. Well.
So, anyway, it's been a bit. We should probably wrap up.
I still really enjoyed the season. It had lots and lots of flaws, to be sure, but I still finished it thinking that was really good. I still really enjoyed that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still not as good as the first season, though.
I do plan on watching it again. Like, not all at once, but, you know, just watching it again. Maybe I'll feel differently about it the second time around, but yeah, I don't know. Did not enjoy it as much as the first, but I didn't hate it. But I guess all in all, I'm just worried about the direction that they're taking it in.
Same.
Oh, and one really quick thing. I don't know if anyone really is interested in this, but at Target, I don't know if you guys saw, they're selling the first season on Blu-ray. It's a Target exclusive. It's $25. It's the Blu-ray and DVD. But the cool thing is, it comes in a box that looks like a VHS movie, like an
I
old
saw
VHS.
that.
I saw it and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. But when I saw it in person, I'm like, this actually feels like really good quality. So I looked up some videos online and it's really nice. Now, I don't know if there's anyone that feels the need to own it on physical media since it's never going to leave Netflix. But for you collectors out there, definitely worth it, I think.
Nice.
Very much so. All right, take us away, Trent.
Alrighty, well, thank you for joining us for this especially long, but I think great episode of Brief Nerdy Podcast. Please reach out to us on social media, email, go to our website, and all of that. BriefNerdy.com has got all the links for you, and we will hopefully see you again next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.